Well, another record was broken. Yes, Alpine can be worse than they were in the past. Oh, and Max won his 4th title. So I guess we should talk about the Las Vegas Grand Prix.
Should we?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or should we just get angry like Charles Leclerc?
We'll do that as well. I mean, I can't wait for it.
Yeah.
Welcome everyone. This is the Blatantly Biased Racing Podcast. In case you didn't know.
Yeah. If you didn't know, why are you here? Subscribe.
Yeah. I mean, if you are and you didn't know, it's an amazing podcast, the best in Formula One coverage right now. Shut up! It's the best.
It's subpar, to be honest. But look, it's good enough.
Yeah, but
it's good enough for the idiots who are watching. It's fine.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
In case you're still not one of the idiots, just subscribe.
Right.
Join the group.
But what
Join
are
the
we
fucking group.
What are we starting with?
Yes, let's start with Alpine in that case. I mean,
oh god. So you want to start at the back and work your way up, yeah? Like start with the pain.
No, let's start with Max. I mean, he deserves the whole thing.
Yeah.
You go first.
I'm just hurt, to be honest, because I mean, it's Vettel was the only 4-time world champion with Red Bull winning 4 times in a row, but here we are now. No, just amazing. To be honest with you, it's been one of those seasons where, like, Max has kind of got everything over the past few years, hasn't he? Like, in terms of people slandering him, Ted Kravitz specifically, which is why I'll never be invited on Sky Sports, among other reasons. Like 2021, it was, stolen. 2022, cost cap and, blah, blah, blah. 2023, dominant car. He needs the fastest car to win. I think this year has proven, like, look, obviously a lot of credit, as always, we'll say, has to go to the team too, who like executed everything brilliantly.
No.
But yeah, brilliant from Max.
No credit to the team.
Why?
It's on Max.
You've been. How much has Jos Verstappen paid you to say this?
I'm still waiting for my check to clear. But apparently,
I wouldn't hold my breath.
Yeah, I mean,
he doesn't seem like a trustworthy fellow. No, look, Max, this is one year where, like, he had the advantage of having the fastest car for the first, like, 6-7 races, to be fair. But realistically, like, there's not many drivers, I think, that would have been able to just hold out the way he did. Just absolutely spectacular throughout the season. Look, as I said, as always, the teams have a big part to play. This is Formula One at the end of the day. If you don't believe that, then you obviously don't understand the sport. So yeah. I know you do when you were winding people up. But incredible. And I think the only thing about tonight, well, last night, was I think we kind of expected the championship to be done here, right? It was kind of like, this is it. Yet Martin Brundle and Crofty were still continuously talking about the championship the whole way through. And every time Martin Brundle said it, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, this championship's over. Like, even if he doesn't win here, it's over. Like, there's no, like, what are you talking about?
The best line was 4 laps left. Crofty says, and Lando Norris has closed the gap to Max to 10 seconds. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I swear there must be something in the Sky Sports commentary booth that just, like, a big sign that says mention the championship, and every couple of minutes they're like, oh yeah, right, come on. God. It just, yeah. But
I mean, yeah, if Lando Norris was not British, he would probably be more loved right now, because the kind of shit he's had to take, and look, a lot of it has been utter nonsense. But
let's talk about Max first, because otherwise people will complain about you being a Lando Norris stan.
Talk about Max, I think for me, what stands out when it comes to Max right now is, and I think the best part is Lando summed it up. Sorry to say that, but Lando summed it up perfectly. He said that when he has the best car, he dominates. When he has a decent car, he's still in contention.
Yeah,
I think that should tell you everything about him. Again, look, there's something about this season where we have to give credit to Red Bull as well, because there aren't many teams that can actually bounce back from the fact that they had the fastest car in the first race, and by the 6th to 7th race, not 6 to 7, but by mid-season, you could say that the car was not there.
Yeah,
it was not going to be the fastest car, and the verdict was out. At that point, usually you see teams crumbling. You see what happened. I mean, a lot of people, I think we've even seen on different social medias that they were coming after Christian Horner, coming after his head. Josh Verstappen, one of them. But I think what Red Bull as a foundation has shown is, of course, there are going to be setbacks, but your foundation when it comes to your team operation, your ability to deal with stressful situations, I think that's what defines Red Bull at this stage. And Max is an integral part of it, but he's not the only part of it. There are a lot of moving parts that actually work together to make the whole thing work. And I think we should not discount that.
I think for people complaining about Christian Horner Christian Horner deserves a lot of credit for it, because the culture and that kind of desire to just get through things and work together and kind of do that is set at the top always. So when things go wrong, he takes the blame, but he has to equally get the credit when things go right. And with everything that's gone on with Red Bull this year, fair play to Christian. That is with him specifically as well. Like you have to, regardless of whether you like the guy or not, like if you're just talking just pure out and out competitive as a businessman, as a just competitor, fair play to him, because like a lot of people would crumble under that pressure really quickly, and he not only held it together but literally kept fighting back and turning it around. And you know, he did the Clinton thing, I think, which is when things go really wrong. Clinton is a good analogy here, because what Clinton basically said was
said Shaggy, right? It was
Clinton just makes more sense, because like Clinton was obviously not only accused of this stuff, proven
obviously white.
Well, that's too, but he was proven to have done this stuff, and the strategy was instead of talking about it and trying to apologize for it, I'm just going to focus on the economy and fixing the country, and that's what kind of Christian Horner almost did. Christian Horner has one of his quieter years. Normally he's out winding people up saying stuff. And I think when things went wrong, he just did the right thing, which was, all right, let's just focus on fixing this on track and winning with Max. And then everyone will shut up. And I think in a way it's worked. Like, you know, Max has won the championship. I think a lot of
people, and I think it's, I think it's a testament to Horner, and I don't know how much to Marco as well, but the fact that in the race in Brazil you had Christian, Jos and Marco sitting across the same table with Max.
Yeah.
You could not have imagined that at the start of the season.
No.
I think that's the most important thing. And again, all of them have made some compromises. Whatever they are, we will probably never know.
Yeah.
It's just that right now, I mean, the amount of crow that Christian had to eat early in the season when it comes to a lot of things, when it comes to, look, Newey is gone, Wheatley is gone, Rob Marshall has excelled at McLaren, Dan Fallows is also left, and okay, maybe some would not have a high opinion of him, but he was considered one of the more influential people at Red Bull. And there were moments where a lot of people questioned if Max would be at Red Bull in 2025, and there are people who still question about his future. But the thing is, he got the whole thing done, and again, future is uncertain, and it is expected to be.
Yeah.
Somewhere down the line, we have to understand that this was what a championship-winning team does, and I mean, I'm not trying to take credit away from Max, but this is an angle that does not get spoken about a lot. Yeah. Just look at what happened on Thursday, on Friday. They had, I wouldn't say a wrong front wing, wrong rear wing, which is again utter nonsense that a lot of people have spewed out. It wasn't the wrong rear wing.
They just didn't have a better rear wing, basically.
Exactly. And they made modifications, right? There's no Adrian Newey present. It was Pierre Gasly who made the modifications, the whole cuts, and
they did something that like backmarker teams with no budget do, which is just cut the thing down. And I do think that is an element that has kind of been instilled in the team. I would say by Newey as well, and perhaps by the background of Horner coming from like lower series and trying, like Horner didn't come from a poor family, but he wasn't rich enough to have his own team even in lower series. So like there's a lot of that kind of grit and working their way up kind of thing, even though these guys aren't exactly poor, but you know what I mean? They still have to work to get somewhere.
Of course. It's understandable.
Yeah. Just, people don't like white privilege these days. But yeah, so what I mean by that is there's a lot of other teams that would not cut that wing down, would not do that, especially the front teams. Like, I can't see Ferrari going out and going, oh, cut that wing down, because they're like, oh, that would look bad. Maybe they would, but it feels like Red Bull is just, they don't care what they have to do, what they have to look like, who they have to copy. Like, I remember them copying a Williams design 2 years ago, I think it was. Like, they will just, it's just, we don't have any arrogance about what works or where it comes from. We just want to win. And we're just going to do whatever it takes to win. So you get a lot of people laughing, like, oh, how did they have that wing? And, how are they cutting? Like, they're becoming Sauber. Look at them cutting the wing down. And it's like, hey, it worked. So, yeah, I mean, I love that. Yeah. It's one of the things I love about Red Bull. Just that startup. It feels like they still have that startup energy. That's one thing, sorry to rant on, but that's one thing that Horner, I think, spoke about earlier this year, or someone in the team did, which was one of the things they did at the start was, as soon as they got kind of outcast as like a silly team, remember when they joined the grid and they were playing their music, and it was all manufacturers back then, basically. And it was like this outcast team. And they saw themselves as like, all right, well, we're going to win as the outcast team. Like, everyone else is the enemy. We're the outsiders. And Horner earlier this year talked about how that's still something the team feels like. Even when they're winning multiple titles, they're the outsider, the underdog. They have to pick an enemy and fight them. And, it's great. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, you see them doing that. And again, you take the Max Verstappen out of the equation and you'll see the team taking a lot of shit. But I think at some point you have to realize that primes end, and primes would end even in this case. But what Red Bull was able to achieve this season, of course, Max plays a big role. We'll get to him as well. But somewhere down the line, you have to understand making the right calls, being calm under stress is something that Red Bull has excelled in.
Yep.
It's the championship acumen that not many teams have. I mean, just look at the nonsense that Ferrari and Alpine did today. Look at the nonsense that Mercedes has done when it comes to its PR throughout the fucking season. And just look at what McLaren does. You don't see all that nonsense with Red Bull, and that is something where they know this is the driver that's going to win them the title, and they just push him to the hilt. Well, I think that's something that a lot of teams
look even at the really quick just change that they made, the really quick kind of like, as soon as they started losing the constructors, it was basically just, right, everything behind Max, let's win this drivers' championship, let's just forget about the constructors, like in just a crazy way where it's like, this is just right, the team's just doing this. And I would not be surprised if Horner and maybe the board or something have realized that earlier on and said to the team, look, if we win the driver's title, we'll cover the constructors like bonuses or something, to kind of get everyone behind it, because it felt like the team just kind of rallied around Max and it went on ahead. And it's just, obviously, look, I think there's very few other drivers I think that they could have in that car that would have pulled off what they were able to do with Max. I think that goes without saying. And by very few, I mean like maybe one other driver or two other drivers on the grid at the minute. And sorry, but Lando Norris this year wasn't one of them, as much as I give him high praise.
I don't think there's any other driver on the current grid that could
maybe Leclerc. Maybe Leclerc.
No, I don't think so. So.
Leclerc and Russell was who I was thinking, but
no, I don't think so. I just don't think so. I don't think they. First of all, I don't think that Leclerc or Russell have reached that level of performance where every week, and I think this is the mentality that, and people don't understand. Yeah, it's not only that, it's just, look, Max Verstappen was a thoroughbred driver already by 2020, and people don't realize that those formative years, how much they've helped him. Leclerc, I'd say he's still not the finished product because of the kind of stuff that I saw today. George, we've seen these formative years right now in Mercedes because he's finally had the chance to run at the front.
Yeah.
And that stuff is what Max did, where he made sure that, look, by 2018, until 2018, for him it was about, okay, I don't have the car which is capable of winning the title or races on every weekend, so I'm just going to go out there and try my best. And what that used to do was it made him very crash prone.
Yeah.
But after the couple crashes in China and Monaco, he made a change in his attitude where it became about maximizing every weekend.
Yeah.
From 2018 till 2020, he did that regularly. So that when 2021 came, it's muscle memory for him. And
Just
even right
maximize
now, it's
everything.
muscle memory.
Yeah.
Everything he does, it's about, okay, this is the car I have, and I want to get the best possible result. And he goes after it, and I don't think, unless, other than maybe Michael Schumacher, I have not seen a driver who's done that this consistently. Maybe Alonso in 2012, but I don't think there's been any other driver who's done that.
No, you're right. Like, I mean, Alonso 2012 does come to mind because impressive in such a shit car in reality. Yeah, Schumacher, like we constantly say it, right? Best driver since Schumacher. I will die on this hill on Twitter, but it's not better driver than Schumacher yet. It could well get there, but not yet. There's just no metric in which it's feasibly true for me. But like just an absolutely incredible drive. The thing is, I said last year when it was getting a little bit dull that he was winning every weekend, right? You know, it was like, it was incredible to watch. But by the end of the season, you're like, right, I wanted to see that once. Please not again. Like, you know, fine.
Yeah. And out of the system now.
Yeah. The one thing I always said was, I don't really care which driver wins as long as they have to fight for it. And the one thing I kept saying to some Max fans last year was, when I was like saying, oh, it's getting a bit dull now, just this continual domination, you know?
Yeah.
The thing I said to some Max fans was, I don't really care if he wins every weekend. I just want a close fight. I want to see Max earn it. And I think that's what's been brilliant about this year. We've seen Max earn it over and over again. And if it wasn't for Brazil, this would have been a really just one of the best drives for him of the season, I think, just purely because the car expectation wasn't there. Like when we were in FP1, FP2, I did not think that this car was going to be anywhere near up there. And I know he finished, what was it, P4? No, P5?
P5. Yeah.
I know he finished P5, but in fairness, where the car actually is, even that was impressive. You know, like it was a good drive, I thought. And
it was good. I think
everything after Brazil isn't impressive though, because Brazil was just a masterclass. So
yeah, but again, even this weekend, I think, look, he places the car where car is supposed to be. It's not a case of a car being supposed to do 100 and he does 105. That's not how any car works. That's a
pet peeve of mine is when people go, oh, he overdrove the car. It's like, no, he drove the car on the limit. You can't overdrive. The car will do what the car will do. Like, the trick is to be able to drive it on the limit without crashing. Because when you go over the limit of a car, that's when you crash. So you're not overdriving the car, you know.
Exactly.
But yeah, sorry, pet peeve of mine.
Yeah, so it's just it's just about that only. I think he could have finished on the podium if he knew that maybe the stakes were higher and he needed the points, because I think he had decent enough pace and he would have defended a bit. He would have been a bit more rigorous with his defense.
He came on the radio a couple of times and just asked where Lando was. So I think the only important
just
thing
wanted to secure it, right?
I think the team kind of knew, like, they kind of knew they could clinch it here, and this was the first time they could clinch it. What it sounded like to me was he probably was like, the whole team's here, we've had a tough year, and celebrating in Vegas would be fucking awesome, so let's just get it done.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like, you know? So, yeah.
Agreed. Just, okay, now to the more, I think, interesting stuff. So Max Verstappen is now a 4-time world champion. It was, I think, Ahmed put this out. So according to, so he had a different take on it. I have a slightly different question to you. Now there are 5 drivers that have actually done this feat where they've achieved 4 titles consecutively.
Yeah.
There's Juan Manuel Fangio, there's Michael
Yep.
Schumacher, there's
Mhm.
Vettel, Lewis, and Max. So these are the 5 drivers. Now I'll remove Fangio from this list because it's very hard to evaluate,
Yeah.
right?
Fangio's the best, obviously.
Yeah, Argentinian, right? So you have to say that, right? Because you're
But
also in South America.
Yeah, according to Helmut Marko. Also, in
Yeah.
fairness, just jokes aside, it is actually the most impressive for several reasons. One of which is reliability wasn't a thing back then. Like the way the cars were built, the way the tracks were, the way safety was. Winning 4 titles in a row in that era is an incredible feat. So
He did it in 3 different teams.
yeah, it's by far the most impressive. Like, yeah.
And he did it at 47
Yeah.
years of age. So
Yeah, he's basically. But look, Alonso will get 4 titles with Aston from 2026 to 2030. So
yeah,
that'll be
100%.
fine. Yeah.
I'm just waiting for that to happen. If it does, fingers
Yeah.
crossed. Anyways, keeping that aside, so now these are the four you can say 4-year reigns that we've seen.
Mhm.
How would you rank them?
My bias is going to come in because I'm a massive Vettel fan, so it's hard. Like,
Good, it should.
Someone put up yesterday, I think, that this is far more impressive because Vettel basically had no competition. And I'm like, were you watching in 2010 or 2012? Like, did you watch either of those
I actually
seasons?
wrote this thing, right? I mean, I wrote this thing that most of the, I think it was some moron. Again,
It's probably 19
I
and
said-
was 10 years of age when this.
I mean, it's
this
still
happened,
19. He might even be. I mean, he might not have hit puberty. You don't know
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
days. I mean, it's probably not from Australia because they wait for people to actually turn 18 before they let them on social media. So
Yeah.
it's just that just to make it a bit more specific for the viewers, the 4 years in question are for Michael Schumacher. It is 2000 to 2003.
2004. 2003, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. For Lewis, it is 2017 till 2020. For Vettel, it is 2010 to 2013, and for Max, it is 2021 till 2024.
Mm-hmm.
So, how would you rank them?
I'm still putting Vettel at the top of this. That is partly bias, and the other reason is just 2010, for example, never led the championship until he won it, essentially, which is impressive. So don't tell me it wasn't a challenge, you moron on Twitter. And 2012 was probably my favorite season of actually watching F1 live. It was just like 2021 was stressful and interesting and dramatic. I rate this season closer to 2020 or 2012 just because it was such a weird season of challenge, but 2012 just an incredible season, and Vettel had to work for that in 2012. Like, Alonso really pressured him. Probably more impressive on Alonso's side than Vettel's, if I'm honest, just because of the car that Alonso had. But yeah, the thing for the question then is, like, Lewis I probably put at the bottom of it, if I'm honest, and that's going to piss people off because, okay, 2017, 2018, he did have a challenge from Ferrari, but Ferrari comfortably fell apart like Ferrari have done so often. And like 2019, 2020, he basically had a dominant car for the entirety of the season. That's going to piss some people off, but I don't care. And then the question is really, like, do I put
there are
Max
actually, by the way, sorry to interrupt. There are actually, again, there are Lewis Hamilton fans with around, I think, 10 to 12,000 followers. Fellow Lewis Hamilton fans, by the way, apparently. According to them, 2018 was a title that was won in a slower car. 2019 was a title where Mercedes was almost as good as Ferrari. It wasn't the fastest car. And 2008 is 100% a season which is pretty much similar to 2024 in their view. So apparently, according to them, Lewis has won all these titles in slower cars, and some very weird theories. And
Yeah.
after a point, I like, mate, you can just keep coping.
Look, I don't think we should make fun of people with clear mental disabilities. So let's not.
Okay.
Look, if you believe that stuff, It's like you could talk about 2017, 2018 where the cars were and so on, but there's nothing to say that realistically, even if you wanted to say that Mercedes' car was slower than the Ferrari, which like you could argue at points over those two seasons, Ferrari was clearly the shitter team in terms of execution, and they still are today. They're not a good team in terms of execution. So look, I'm not taking away from.
I mean, again, case in point today.
Yeah. Like I'm not trying to take away from what Lewis did. I'm just talking, if we're talking on like the magnitudes of where they were, so the thing with Max and Schumacher is, ironically, it's kind of, I'm trying to think, it's kind of similar in some ways, isn't it? Because you're talking like a team that was dominant for part of it and not dominant for part of it, right? Because like 2002 was just an absolute out and out, like Schumacher won basically every race. That's like Max's 2023, essentially. Yeah. 2000 and 2001 and 2003, there were actual title fights.
Yeah, 2003 is similar. I think 2003 is similar to 2024 in some ways.
Yeah.
But for 2003, I think Michael made a few mistakes as well.
Mm-hmm.
He was, but again, let's leave the whole thing aside. Still, there were a few mistakes that he made. 2000 and 2001 is, I think, similar to Verstappen's 2022.
Yeah.
Where there was some competition, but the competition was not competent enough to actually mount a, what should we call it? A rigorous challenge. I think 2000 is probably the last time Michael actually had a very, very a bit, you can say maybe a tenth slower than prime Mika Hakkinen, what he had in 2000, and that's why he was very emotional when he won the title in Japan.
Yeah.
But you could see that Mika was not all there, and he had one foot out of the door.
I think
so. Yeah.
I think if we're just like, I'm not talking about overall career, but in terms of just an impressive 4-drive run, I'm going to go Vettel first just because I'm a Vettel fan, and you can argue with me in the comments on that. I'll probably go Max next because the overcoming in 2021 was just insane, like the things that went on. And this year as well, another impressive show from Max. Whereas I think those particular titles for Schumacher, I don't think there was as much to overcome. I don't want to say it's much easier because it's not like it was much easier. He still performed incredibly well. But those were the years where Ferrari was like the dominant force in the sport. So as much as Red Bull is now, kind of, but maybe a little bit more at points. So yeah, I'm gonna say Lewis at the bottom, then Schumacher, then Max, then Vettel for that.
Yeah.
I know people will put Vettel probably below Lewis because people are pricks, but anyway.
Yeah. I had a somewhat similar list when it comes to these four specifically here, because again, for me, what stands out is we have to add context into all of this. When Lewis won his fourth title, he was 32 years of age. When Michael won his fourth title, he was 32. Max is winning at 27, but he's been in the sport for a decade.
Yeah.
When
Vettel was 26.
Vettel was 26, and he had that was his fourth or fifth year in F1.
So he started in F1 2007, right?
Last 2-3 races in 2008 was his first full season. In his third year he won the title. Yeah. And from then onwards he went ahead. So basically by sixth season he was a 4-time world champion.
Genuinely, it annoys me talking to people I assume are new fans when they shit on Vettel, saying like, oh, you only ever won dominantly and so on. Because I just, if you believe that, I cannot believe you were watching, because he literally, like, the stat is right there. He didn't lead the championship at all in 2010 until the last race. So like, you know, you can't say, oh, you had the out and out dominant car in 2010.
And he lost around 80-90 points. At the very least, he lost around that many points due to reliability. 80-90 points, multiple race wins gone.
It's just like you can't, like, I don't know, like the problem the reason people think that is because when people talk about Vettel, they talk about 2013 and that dominant run at the end to winning the title in 2013. And then it's just literally that, I'll just assume then all 4 years were like that. And it's like, no, they weren't.
Okay, it's not even that. 2013, and I think the best part is I actually uncovered a Michael Schumacher interview where he was talking about Vettel's 2013 season. And he said, how many races did Vettel win in 2013? They said 13.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next question was, how many races did Weber win in 2013? And the answer was 0.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I wouldn't want to be Vettel's teammate right now.
Yep. And Weber is a much
that,
better driver than Perez is doing at the moment. Let's put this in perspective.
Weber
here.
is probably, he's much better than a Bottas, Perez, who else?
Like,
name any other second.
Going
Barrichello,
into the last race in 2010.
What? Sorry?
It's okay. Going into the last race in 2010, realistically,
he was leading.
There was a bigger chance that Weber was going to win the championship than Vettel.
Yeah.
So, like, history could have been very, very different. So Weber is not some shit teammate. Like, this is like Weber's not a Bottas or a Perez at the moment. Shut up, Sai. I can already hear you going, Jason, I'm not a Perez fan.
I am a Perez fan.
I am a Perez fan. Yeah, like Perez wasn't a terrible driver, but judging him on right now, he's nowhere near where Weber was.
Yeah, plus the thing is, Red Bull, that is, the current Red Bull dynamics are not what they were when Vettel was a part of the team.
Mm-hmm.
When Vettel was a part of the team, it's not a case where that every single iron or an atom at Red Bull is working for Vettel. That's not the case.
It wasn't.
That's
like
the case
that.
right now. I mean, the biggest example is in both 2010 and 2012, Weber was leading the championship at some stage.
Mm-hmm.
And what Vettel did was he molded his driving style to the kind of car that Newey was actually upgrading. And that's how the late season surges came. And it's the details that a lot of people just do not understand.
This is the thing. Someone, I imagine, someone on Twitter replied to a comment of mine about the championship. I think it was about the Ford championships, and they said, "Is this ruining Vettel's legacy, Mr. Hassett?" And I assume this is because you and me had a conversation on this very podcast about Hamilton's legacy at Ferrari, like if he continues on. And this is the thing. People are like, oh, well, Hamilton's legacy won't be tarnished by this. And it's like, well, okay, but people genuinely forget how good Vettel was because of Ferrari. Yeah. Like, if Vettel had have ended in 2014... Vettel would be remembered as one of the best drivers in Formula One history.
He would be comfortably ranked higher than Alonso, without a doubt.
Yeah, and because of what happened at Ferrari, a lot of people don't rate it that way.
And a lot of people would actually consider him. They will put him on the level of they'll put him at a level of a Senna or even a Gilles Villeneuve, whose career ended very early.
Hugely highly rated, yeah. But and that's why when people were like, "Oh, Hamilton's legacy won't be tarnished," it's like, well, the reason I say that is because I've literally watched it happen to my favorite driver. Like I saw it happen over the years to the point where he got to Aston Martin, and people were questioning whether he'd be able to beat Stroll or not. Like that was the kind of talk we had. And you're talking about a guy that I remember going like when he like that moment where he bowed down to the car when he won the Ford title, and I remember watching it just like just thinking like, this is just, what have we witnessed? Like this has been incredible. For me, it was like I had only started watching at the end of Schumacher's dominance, 2004, properly watching. So I didn't really see the kind of, I've seen it now. I've gone back and watched most of it now. But for me at that time, it's like Vettel was just, I thought Vettel would continue dominating. And how quick things change in Formula One is kind of what makes it such a brilliant sport. Like, the people who push for spec series in Formula One, go fuck yourself. Like, that's the best thing about this sport. Is that it's not about just the driver. Like, you have to get a factory, a team of staff, engineers, all working around just to make this one person win a title. That's what makes it beautiful.
And that's what so many people have to understand, that in Formula One, I think empirically and even just stats are there. where a lot of people are clamoring for Max to move teams. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people that were actually talking about him moving to Mercedes have shut up. Haven't they
I wonder
recently?
why.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, you have to understand one thing. The reign that Max has had right now, it could be a case where things don't go. Again, by the way, switching gears right now, let's talk about the future of Max and Red Bull, right? Because I think we cannot escape from the fact that Red Bull was P5 at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's not the fastest car anymore, at least in most conditions.
There's a very real possibility this could be Max's last title with Red Bull.
Yeah.
In fairness, with the way Formula One goes, for all we know, this could be his last title. Full stop. We've seen stranger things in this sport.
Exactly.
Even with, but I would imagine he will try and do a team switch if this is his last title with Red Bull. But
Yeah.
that's what makes this season so impressive for Max. He is not winning in a team that has been out and out fastest the whole way through the season. Context is key. He did have the fastest car for the first, quarter of the season? Yeah, first quarter of the season.
Yeah.
So, that did help, but that doesn't take away from just the stellar job he did. But yeah, looking at his future.
I think the very basic stat is since Miami, he's extended his championship lead, and that should tell you everything.
Yeah, brilliant.
There's no more discussion after that. It's just end of story.
Amazing.
And during that,
I was just going to say, it says as much about how brilliant Max and Red Bull have been at dealing with this as it says about how fucking terrible McLaren have been dealing with things. And I hope that Max does say thank you to Zach Brown for helping him win the championship this year. Which he kind of did.
That was epic. I think that was as good as Fernando Alonso approaching Johnny Herbert and telling him, I was a world champion. You weren't. That's why you became a commentator.
But yeah, I think I would say there's a good 50% chance that this could be his last title with Red Bull, because I don't think next year is going to go particularly well. And then the question and the reality is, if next year doesn't go very well, how much faith does he have that Red Bull will be the winning team in 2026? And
let's break it down. Let's break it down a bit more. Let's analyze the players that will be there next season. Because again, Mercedes threw a spanner in the wings just with the kind of race weekend that they had. So what we have is, again, the key question that we're actually asking is,
sorry,
it was actually put down by. Sorry,
just before you give the key question, the funniest thing for me from yesterday was, remember how I've been saying and repeatedly to you that Mercedes just don't understand this concept or these regs at all? Yeah. Toto Wolff at the start of the race on the grid basically said, we don't understand why we're here. And then Hamilton in the post race was like, we don't really understand, why. And George as well was like, yeah, we don't really know.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you mean you don't know? That's why Max cannot go to Mercedes right now, because they don't know why they're good or why they're bad. They just know their car works sometimes and doesn't other times. Sorry, I interrupted you. I just thought that was really funny.
Yeah, no, go for it. No, that's fine. It's just that, the biggest question right now is this the last time Red Bull and Max Verstappen win the title? I think for that you have to ask one more thing. Okay, Red Bull and Max Verstappen are not winning the title. Who is then? Which team is ready to actually take that mantle? That's where the problem is.
Yeah.
Because just to delve deeper into, and I think you mentioned the first contender out of it. Mercedes have no fucking clue what the car does.
No idea.
It's basically they just come into a weekend and it's like rolling the dice. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll whine on the radio and say, Lewis, we are sorry, the car did not work this time. Yeah. So
I'm sorry, Lewis. We left the pieces on the shelf along with your career. Yeah.
Oh, poor guy had to walk back that course so many times this weekend. It was hilarious to see.
Honestly, even Crofty we'll talk about it later. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just that. Anyways, the second team is Ferrari, a team that has zero clue of how to manage driver dynamics when there's a Carlos Sainz in the team. And And next season there will be Lewis Hamilton in the team who would actually tell them to shut up whenever something is actually put forward. That's Ferrari, by the way. And then
they should have kept
McLaren.
Sainz. But anyway,
Yeah.
we'll talk.
And the next team is, well, McLaren. And they've shown already how ready they are to actually not win the title. So you take all these teams into consideration. I won't be surprised if we see a season where Red Bull is okay, fine, it's fourth fastest. But again, this season, Max he won 8 races out of 20, 21 or 22. I don't think he's winning the next 2 races, so he's probably going to end with 33% of the race wins.
Yeah.
If next season he wins even 5 or 6 races, all of them are wet races or whatever, and he just keeps picking the points again and again and again, and he's still there just maximizing everything, with the kind of shenanigans that goes on around him in the other 3 teams, he could win the title. I mean,
Yeah.
How should it actually be a surprise?
I just think it's like, the reason I say it's 50-50 is because at the moment the real question is there a higher, like, how high is the ceiling on these regs for these cars, right? So like, if we're right at the ceiling, then there's a good chance he could win next year, because basically even if Red Bull have to change like some fundamental things about their car, they won't be far off next year, and then it will come down to driver and their operating decisions, in which case Red Bull could very well be in the fight. If there is a bit of a higher ceiling, that for me is when it is, I think, all in the hands of Ferrari and McLaren. And the reason I say that is just because Ferrari and McLaren could end up with a much faster car from the start of the season. And when you have a much faster car, then you can overcome some of those, operational issues, as long as they're not constant. And I think the only saving grace for McLaren is, I think there will be some very strong conversations over the winter. Maybe not, though, because, they said they weren't ever in the driver's fight, which was just stupid. Yeah, Ferrari's going to be problematic, isn't it? Yeah, like, you're right. Like, it could be... Like, Max could win the championship next year. The reason at the moment I think it's 50-50 is just because it really depends on the car. And I think the reason it gives advantage to Ferrari and McLaren is because if Ferrari and McLaren both show up with faster cars than Red Bull, right, I think Ferrari and McLaren will have more to gain by continually developing over the course of the season, because Red Bull will be thinking more long term. They'll be thinking about 2026. They've got the new engine. They've got all this new pressure on them. 2026 cannot be a shit show. And losing a title in 2025 to focus heavily on 2026, I think would be Horner's gamble, basically his play.
You think he'll do that?
I don't know, because
I don't think Red Bull works that way.
Maybe not. But yeah, I guess because if you look at 2021, they didn't work that way, did they? They focused. It's just because of the engine and the situation that Horner's in with the board now. I feel like things have changed slightly. I think Mercedes will write off 2025. I think Mercedes won't. Because Mercedes will have 2 new drivers. They'll be very much focused on 2026. I think Mercedes will basically write 2025 off once the season starts. McLaren, I think, will keep going, because I think they know as well as anyone else 2026 is a coin flip for them as well. And I think Ferrari is the same, because Ferrari is now going into, unless they win the Constructors this year, it'll be a record of not having titles for them at the end of this season.
Is it?
Yeah. The last time...
Are you sure?
The last time I think was 15 seasons. Now it's 16 if they don't win this year. As far as I remember, because it was
1979 to 2000 to 1999. That's 20 years, right?
1983 to 1982 to 1999. Constructors, yeah, not drivers, constructors. So this will be a record.
Yeah, they won in 83. Yeah.
So
they won in 83 and they won in 99.
Well, not winning either title, basically. But that, not just, whatever way you want to calculate it, but not winning either title.
Got it.
Yeah, so it'll be a record if they don't win this season. So I just think
yeah,
you say they don't care. John Elkann definitely does. You know, the board at Ferrari definitely does. I don't know. I'm excited for next year because I genuinely, it could go one way, it could go any way at the moment, and I think the good thing is the teams are getting closer.
What's going to happen is, I don't think that either of the 4 teams would be that far apart from the benchmark that they could willingly and definitively just call time on the season. I think they'll be in a situation where it's just like they could see that, okay, we just get one upgrade which is worth 2 to 3 tenths and we're there.
And if that happens, it'll be an amazing season because you'll have
and what's going to happen is, come 2026, there'll be one team that has just basically called time on 2025, and then it will be fighting for the championship in 2026. No, it will be Williams.
If we
Franco
get
Colapinto will be the world champion.
If we get Colapinto and Alonso fighting for the title in 2026, beautiful.
Yeah. Wow.
Beautiful. Yeah. I'll take it.
Yeah. I think for me the biggest thing is right now what we've seen. Okay, we probably didn't notice. Jeppe P. Olesen, I think that's his name.
Mm-hmm.
He shared the whole list of teams bringing upgrades, the timeline and everything, and I just realized that in Austin, McLaren brought a massive upgrade. And since Austin, how many races has McLaren won?
None.
0.
Yep.
And has it been the fastest car in every race? Has it encountered issues with its car? The answer is yes, it has. And that should tell you everything about the fact that these regulations, they are not easy to understand. This is why I predicted out of the blue, Mercedes comes in and blows everyone out of the water.
This is why I think the question is, are we at the ceiling or is there some more to gain? And I think the evidence so far points to us being quite close to the ceiling. There's not much.
Also thought so, right? In 2019, there was this impression that we are almost there and teams are converging, and then we come to 2020 and there's DAS, there's quite a few new tricks, and everyone else is just...
That's why I'm saying it points towards it, but with Formula 1 it's never cut and shut. Like we don't know until we get there. Like we could get to 2024 or 2025 and Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull or Mercedes could have just figured something out and boom. We get a 2023-esque. Same. Look, it's going to be a hard one to call on the cars. The thing is, if the cars are all very close, then realistically that is advantage Max, right? Because Mercedes have got they've got a rookie in 2025, so that's going to be tough. Like if he wins a title in his first season, wow. But yeah,
okay, imagine the blowback. Please, that I wish that happens. I mean,
if he does the thing that Hamilton couldn't,
okay. I didn't even think on those lines. It was just that Hamilton's replacement wins the title.
But also Hamilton's replacement wins the title in his rookie season, which Hamilton didn't.
And he'd be the youngest ever to do it. So he'll basically annoy 2 fan bases.
Yeah.
Great. Team Kimi Antonelli, let's go for it.
Let's go for it.
Let's just go for it.
But look, I think the thing is, I don't have faith in Mercedes to have a car that could win throughout the season because right now they just don't seem to understand their car.
To be fair, they don't need to win all races. What they need 6 or 7 races where temperature is very low, and they'll just win 7 races, and other races they just camper through. That's
sure. I mean, anything could happen, but if I was a betting man, I wouldn't be betting on Mercedes.
Yeah.
And I think Russell. Look, if Russell had the right car, I think he'll fight for a championship. I think he will.
Just look at what happened this weekend.
If Red Bull are close to everyone else, then Max has a good chance of winning the title because Max will not fall apart. Red Bull will make the right decisions, and Max will maximize everything.
Yeah,
it's Ferrari and McLaren that are the real questions, aren't they? Because McLaren have everything on their plate now to have learned all the lessons they need to fight for a title next year. But I'm concerned that they're not going to learn from any of them. And that's my worry. And then Ferrari are utterly brilliant when they want to be. And then
No. They are utterly brilliant when no one expects them to be.
Yes.
And when everyone expects them to do well,
or when they need to do well.
or when they need to do well. It's, I mean, just imagine this weekend. This weekend is no different, honestly. It's, and anyways,
Sainz was calling strategy again, and by the way, calling correct strategy as it turns out, right? And this is why I think Ferrari, may have made a mistake, because Hamilton, look, as brilliant as Hamilton is, he does not often call his own strategies. He's just not that type of driver, right? So you've got Leclerc, who never does it. You've got Hamilton, who never does it. And you've got Ferrari, who never gets the strategy right. So, who's going to be calling the strategies?
I mean, that's okay.
There's another issue, actually, as well. One of the head strategic guys from Red Bull has gone to McLaren for next year. That could make a change.
Yeah.
That could help.
The one that was just...
It's Will...
I know which one you're talking about. But again, there are
it's
so
not
many
Hannah
people that
Schmidt.
actually...
Hannah Schmidt.
No, Hannah Schmidt is...
She's the
Hannah
top
Schmidt is
dog.
actually getting even promoted to a new role.
Yeah, she's the top man at the team.
Yeah.
It's a funny way to say it. But yeah, Ferrari I just don't trust, because Sainz, but Sainz called it, right? Sainz called it. He came into the pit.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Bit later.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyways, I think that should wrap it up. Ultimately, if we have to talk about 2025, is this the last time Max wins the title?
Will Courtney is that?
Yeah, Will Courtney. Will Courtney left.
He's the head.
He joins
head of
next
race strategy.
Season. I think he joins next season in March or February or something.
I'll tell you now. He might not be able to go there until... He might not be able to take up the option until 2026.
I read the wrong thing. I think there are so many people that have actually left Red Bull and joined other teams.
McLaren will have to wait a little under 2 years for Courtney to join the team, though, with Red Bull saying he continues to be part of the team, seeing out his contract. So it sounds like he'll be on gardening leave, but I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
But he's going to be sporting director there. He's head of race strategy at the minute.
Yeah, basically the role that Jonathan Wheatley has.
Yeah. What's Hannah Schmidt then is the principal strategy engineer. Okay,
yeah.
Right. So he's head of strategy. She's principal. So she's probably moving up to his position, I would assume that.
No, he was below her apparently. I don't know. Even I don't know how it works.
Yeah. Oh, you know what it is? There's the strategy team, and then there's the race strategy team. So you've got, anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah. There's they're really complex, these teams. But
yeah. Just to wrap it up, I think if even if at the start of the next season, assuming Red Bull does not fall apart in terms of performance, I think Max is still the favorite. I'd still say he's the favorite. That's where I kind of end up with the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay, switching gears, Lando, McLaren. I think for me the biggest question is what's next for them. I mean, first of all, they've become the butt of all jokes. They've been trolled like anything, and I think it was brutal what Zach had to go through when Max basically pointed out, and he will not like that. And if he's someone of these kind, that someone of a Horner or a Wolf kind of a person, that he'll keep his receipts for the future, I think.
Yeah.
But the point is, there are a lot of areas where things are going wrong. First of all, what's next for McLaren? We'll talk about Lando after this. Where do you think McLaren goes from here?
I think McLaren probably will win the constructors this year anyway. Personally, it's going to be close. It's going to be the last race, but Qatar, they should do well. Then it is McLaren. And Abu Dhabi, I think, will come down to it. Ferrari, the thing is, if it was another team they were fighting for the constructors, like if it was Mercedes or Red Bull, I would say, probably not. But given that McLaren make mistakes, it's like, yeah, sure. But I mean, they're fighting against Ferrari, who equally make mistakes. So swings and roundabouts. Look, the thing is, for next year, they really need to have an actual plan for how they're going to handle things. At the moment, we'll talk about Lando, but at the moment, their driver situation might somewhat be solving itself, because it's...
Let's do one thing. Let's jot it down into what are the key weaknesses that they have to address.
So
First,
right, first one is the car development, but I think that's probably their strongest suit. Right, they've been very, very pragmatic about it. Obviously, they haven't been perfect, but it's F1. There's big competition. It's going to be difficult to be perfect, but they've been very, very pragmatic. So I actually think when it comes to car development, out of all of the teams at the top, they're actually the one that I have the most confidence in to have a good winter break and come with a solid car. Like, if McLaren showed up with a car that is shit at the start of next season, I would be surprised. If Ferrari showed up with a car that is shit at the start of next season, I would say, oh, Ferrari doing Ferrari things. So, I have the most confidence in them. And the reason for that is also that Red Bull, I think, have to change some fundamentals. And when you change fundamentals in Formula One, it can go one of two ways. You can get it right or you can get it very, very wrong. So car development, I think, is kind of the least concern for them. And clearly Rob Marshall is the real Adrian Newey. I think that's what's the obvious here.
Yeah.
And then we have basic strategy and how you handle a season, right? Like operations and then drivers. So I guess you want to talk about operations first and then get to the drivers, right? They need to basically, in terms of operations, decide when they're in a fucking title fight, I think, first of all. I think it's a very simple thing to go, oh, can we win the title? We should probably fight for a title then. Because if you're not going to do that, then kind of what's the point of being in Formula One? Like the fact that they came out and said, oh, we never really thought about the driver's title is just bonkers to me. Like, it's a team that hasn't won since 2007, 2008. They know how quick things can change. They know how quick things can go wrong. The moment they won that race in Miami, they should have said, right, guys, fuck it. Let's just go for both titles. Let's see what happens. Put everything behind and say to the drivers, look, over the next 2 or 3 races, it's up to you guys to fight it out. And whoever of you is the strongest driver or leading in the next 3-4 races, we are backing them 100%. And whoever is leading is, they should have just gone all in on it. And it feels like that's not there. But on top of that, they also have made lots of silly little mistakes. And those silly little mistakes have added up as well. Like, strategy fumbles, some pit stop issues, little things. The pit stops have gotten much better. They have been working on that. Like, I've seen that get better.
They are the best right now in terms of stop timings.
And that's one thing that Red Bull did in 2009, 2010. They highly focused on getting that right. But I mean, that was one of the things where they started destroying everyone else because they really focused on it. And it made a huge difference for them. Because you don't want to be calling a strategy gamble and then coming in and not being sure that the pit stop is going to go well. So that's been good. Look, I think they will learn from the operational issues. Like, the race starts is not just Lando. It's been down to the clutch and stuff as well, right? I think those technical issues they'll fix. I think bringing in, learning from what they've done this season in terms of strategy calls will get better. My biggest concern for McLaren is just the actual drive to win a title. That's the concern I have. Because it feels to me like there's not that overwhelming, this could be our last chance. And that needs to be you made a good point earlier. I was thinking Red Bull could write off next season, but you're probably right. That isn't in Red Bull's DNA. If there's a chance at the title, they're hunting for that title at all costs. And I don't think McLaren has that. And McLaren could really fuck that up. If they go into next season, they think to themselves, right, we have an outside chance, so we should focus on 2026. They could end up never winning a title again for another 10 years with that kind of thinking.
I think for me, I think basically what you're trying to say is that then it's what it has shown this season is that the minerals are not there. To put it very bluntly. They're not a team of winners. That's the whole problem.
To put it bluntly, the killer instinct, that underlying just instinct to just go for it at all costs isn't there. And it's like a team that's just trying to learn and figure things out. And you need to go for it. And if you make mistakes and you fuck up, that's just part of the journey. You can't.
Yeah.
And not going for the driver's title this year, it seems to me like a wasted opportunity.
I think there are moments this season where it just appeared that Lando was alone in that team, and no lead driver should ever be in a position where he feels that. But I think even looking from outside, you could just see what happened in Hungary, where he was forced to do that. What happened in other races where Oscar got the jump on him, the strategies compromised him, and he's the one defending the team. The thing is, he can defend the team, but sometimes what happens is those errors and something they lead to a driver trying to overcompensate, and then errors creep in, and then you're the one standing there, and if the team defends you or not, more often than not, you're the one who's more in front of the media than the team.
Yeah.
And that's the Constantina effect that you have to avoid. And that's something that I think this is something that stands out in the title reigns or dominance that we've seen in Formula One in general. Lewis had a Toto Wolff and a Niki Lauda standing by him pretty much all the time throughout that era. Vettel had a Helmut Marko, who was, to be honest, again, he has his moments of being a complete asshole, but to be honest, there were moments that I think him being there and him guiding him in areas where I think Vettel specifically pointed out in 2013, where he lost the win to Hamilton in Hungary, and he got a dressing down from Marko because he said that you could have won that race, and you weren't strong enough. He wasn't. I think he was unable to overtake Jenson Button, and that cost him the race win.
Yeah.
And from that point onwards, Vettel went on to win 9 consecutive races, a record at the time. You need those kind of people that a driver can fall back on. Lando is 24, 25. He is very young into it. This is his first time he's actually fought for a title.
Yeah.
He does not have someone to fall back on. Even if you go back, Alonso had a Briatore. A motherfucker, but still he's someone who's a legend in the sport. And
he's a legend because he had that killer instinct of win at all costs. And sometimes those costs were literally too high. You know.
Look, most of the time the cost was high for Renault, so it didn't really.
The cost was high
much,
for Renault and for the integrity of Formula One, not so much for Flavio himself.
I mean, he's back anyway, so it looks like the cost was not too high either. Anyways, even you go back further, you had Michael Schumacher, you had Lewis Hamilton's first championship win, Ron Dennis. You need these people. Who does Lando have? I think this was something that hampered Vettel as well during the Ferrari time, where I think he was a lone warrior who looked for allies, and there were no allies that were present there to actually, he couldn't really marshal his troops. Yeah, that's what Lando is struggling with. I
think the thing, like Vettel at Ferrari, you always felt like basically if any driver comes in and beats Vettel for even a few races, Ferrari's confidence and focus will just move to that driver. And then we saw exactly that happen when Leclerc came in. You know, literally within like 5 races, Ferrari were just, we're the Leclerc team now. You know, and I think that's kind of unfortunately probably how Lando has felt this year, because Oscar had a few good races, and even though Lando was comprehensively the better driver all season, it's I've noticed as well the whole bashing of Oscar's far better got very, very quiet very, very quickly. And I said it would happen, and it happened. But anyway, I feel like Lando probably thought to himself, like, well, I've been comprehensively the better driver. I'm in the title fight. Like, what? You know, I've lost a couple of races to a teammate, which everyone does at points. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, we don't favor either driver. And it's like, guys, if you're Lando, who literally turned down a Red Bull seat to stay with McLaren, and then McLaren's like, oh, well, we're not backing you for the title, you've got to feel like, well, enough. And if we talk about the drivers, I think that, for me, is going to be the biggest question of next year. Because if Lando wants to be a world champion, he basically needs to turn around next year and go, oh, I'll help the team as long as the team's helping me. But the moment the team turns around and says, Lando, we need you to help Oscar, no, like, tell him to help himself. That's who he needs to be next year, because it's obvious that McLaren are going to back themselves, and they're going to hope that the drivers just kind of figure it out. That's basically where they're at. And that's why unless they have the fastest car or their competition is Ferrari, it's going to be tough to win a championship.
I think the problem that I see is you have teams that back the driver, and then you have teams that hope the driver is going to do the job for you.
Yeah.
And I think other than Red Bull, I think neither of the top three teams are in a situation where they are backing the driver. They are saying that you're the future, we are building the team around you, let's go for it. And I think that is ultimately what's going to hurt all three of them. I think it's going to hurt McLaren the most. The reason being, look, Oscar is a brilliant talent, and I think he'll improve even more next season.
Yeah.
He'll be much closer, and from the start of the season there will be races where it's going to be a toss-up.
Yep.
It's not going to be a case where Lando is going to dominate like he did this season. Yeah, by the way,
maybe in qualifying, I think he's still.
Who knows?
I think he's just a very, very good qualifier. I think he just hasn't had the car to show it over the years. And this year,
last season it was Oscar who got a few over Lando in qualifying as well, right? In the second half of the season, it was 50-50. So the thing is, quality drivers, they find their way. And I won't be surprised if Oscar does. The point is, once that happens, you have both of them taking points off each other, and you are in a situation where you're compromising yourself. You're basically stepping on your own foot. And I think it has to come down to the fact that at mid-season, I don't think they should make a call before mid-season, but if by mid-season a driver who is ahead, and I'm talking about it from McLaren's perspective, whichever is ahead, and it could either be Oscar, it could either be Lando, because again, I have a lot of faith in Oscar, whatever I've seen of him. Either of them, back them to the hilt. The other driver doesn't like it, tell him to fuck off. Honestly, just tell him to fuck off. Look, you don't want to get the job done, no problem. We have Gabriel Bortoleto waiting. He's in Audi, we'll bring him back, we'll bring him in a McLaren. If that doesn't work, we'll bring a Franco Colapinto, anyone. We'll call up Max Verstappen to come in.
Well, the thing is, if you've got one driver delivering, then the question, then the answer is, okay, if you don't like it, that's fine. We only need a number two now anyway. We don't need two number ones anymore.
Yeah. If
you don't need two number ones to win a championship.
Yeah.
Like Red Bull has proven this. You just need a number two that isn't. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Like. The thing is, it's just.
It has to be. You have to be ruthless enough to understand.
It should have been obvious this year, right? Like, even if you want to say a couple of races after Miami, even if you said Imola onwards, like, it should have been obvious that, right, look, Oscar Piastri might be a brilliant driver that could beat Lando Norris next year. But right now, he's not beating Lando Norris. And maybe he'll beat him at a couple of tracks, which he did go on to later in the season. But for the majority of this season, Lando Norris was the out-and-out number one driver. Even when McLaren repeatedly didn't back him up, he was the number one driver, right? And
I think it's the second or third most dominant head-to-head.
It's insane. I think it's like in qualifying alone, I think it's like 17-3 or something, right?
Yeah, 3 or 4 races where Oscar has actually got the better of him, and that should be
like the point though is
that's Perez numbers, by the way.
And the point is, when you got to Miami, like if that was Red Bull or Mercedes, they would have just turned around and said, "Sorry, Lewis," or "Sorry, George, but we have a small chance at winning the Drivers' Championship if this continues, and we have to take it." So, like, you're backing down on this, and we're putting everything behind him, and keep your head down, keep focusing, and next year try and make it go your way. But they didn't do that. Like, and if they, I was convinced that they had learned from that and that next year would be different. But what has me concerned for McLaren is that talk of, well, we never really thought we were in the driver's fight anyway. And it's just, what are you talking about? Like, if you just did the math yourself.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a level of... When Vettel lost the title in 2009, again, it was a vague outside shot that he had. He cried like anything in Brazil.
Yeah.
And the entire team...
19-3 qualifying, by the way.
God.
And it's 15-7 in
races.
in races. And do you know who else is 15-7 in races?
Who?
Alonso and Stroll. Just, you know, Hulkenberg and Magnussen are 15-4. And let's see, there's one other one here, I'm sure.
Lewis
somewhere.
and George's, it might be closer, I think.
I will tell you now. So Lewis and George is 14-8
Yeah.
in the races.
Yeah, in quali it is.
13-7 for Charles and Sainz, and 21-1 in the races for Max and
That's
Perez.
basically the race where Max DNF'd. That's the one that
Yeah.
they gave to Checo.
Lewis and George is 17-5. Leclerc and Sainz is 13-8.
They're qualifying?
Yeah, 21-1 again for Max and Perez, and yeah, 19-3. Like you're talking about, like Oscar is an absolutely brilliant driver, and the stats line up to like Alonso v
One-sided
Stroll.
dominance. Yeah.
Like, you know, like, so
It should never have been a discussion.
no, it shouldn't. That's like, look, the problem is the people who basically say, oh, well, you know, why would they pick a number one? Because Oscar is the number, like, Oscar's a brilliant driver. It's like, yeah, Oscar's a brilliant driver, but Lando has comfortably been the better driver this season.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
like, the difference is when you've got, like, you know, the difference is even though he's beating him in all these head-to-heads, it's not like Oscar is miles off.
Yeah.
But when it comes to a title, that doesn't matter. It's like, who's delivering?
Yeah.
And it was so obvious for all of us watching. And why it wasn't for McLaren is beyond belief. to be
Beyond
honest.
this. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and that's what that's what actually makes me nervous. And I as I said, I think I said it even the last time, the proof is in the pudding. There are areas where they need to improve. Unless they do, it's just, I mean, it's we can talk about it all we want. It's just that they have to get it done on track. And first of all, they have to understand that there are, you know, as I said, to make improvements, you need to accept the fact that there are some things that are actually wrong. And I'm still not sure McLaren is in that mindset to actually understand that. They are still taking. You can't take grace. You know, you have to. Again, Norris is hard on himself, but he's hard on himself as a driver. He's probably not the authoritative figure that a lot of other drivers are, and sometimes that hampers him. I think that's what's happening. Anyways, now switching gears to more
I think that will
sorry,
happen next. I would be surprised if he's not more aggressive next year in every way, because I think losing the title right now is probably just okay. You know, whatever, it's over. But I think over the off season, when he's kind of looking back over the season, like if I was him, I'd be getting very fucking angry. I'd be like, we could have been going, even with all of my mistakes, we could have had 2 races left with like an 18-point gap, which is feasible to win, like with the 2 races left. You know, like you could have let me lose it myself, but you didn't give me the chance to lose it myself even. You know, like that's the thing. I just, the last thing I'll say on it is I do wonder.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the bit. I think it's the best part you're actually talking about right now, because since 2019 that Lando has actually come in, every season has been an improvement from him in terms of performance. He's gone back, he's learned again and again and again and again. But the problem is, where I tend to take a step back when it comes to Lando is, there are things that you can learn when it comes to driving in terms of skills, stuff like that. Being a ruthless bastard is something that you're intrinsically the one. I am not sure if Lando is that.
I would say it is normally intrinsic, right? But from my own experience in business and other things, when you get shafted or when someone's really a prick to you and things go wrong like that, it can be kind of drilled into you over time. Like I was never a ruthless prick with business, but over the years I became the type of person who literally would walk into a room with like a multi-billion-dollar company and a man who I would have been like, yeah, sure, we'll do whatever, to turn around and literally in front of his staff and clients to be like, if you raise your voice like that to me again, we are going to have serious fucking issues. Like, you know, these things can, if you go through a cycle of things really working against you, it can grind you down to the point where you have the option of kind of falling in your seat and going, oh, I can't take this anymore, or fighting out of the corner. And if he could come fighting out of the corner, and the ruthlessness, McLaren could make him like their worst enemy, where literally because of what happened this season, next season when he gets asked to swap around with Piastri, it's like, no, go fuck yourself. You know, like that could happen.
That's not happening.
You know? Probably not.
Next season, it's just the thing is, next season is going to be a title battle, and I don't think that either of the drivers will be willing to leave even a single point on the table.
No, but I think at some point, like McLaren could have a situation where they have to ask for team orders, and I think that genuinely after this season, I would be very surprised if either driver is willing to push for team orders.
Yeah,
I think both
managed.
drivers will be like, look, no. The last thing I was going to say on it is, I am a little bit concerned that perhaps McLaren not learning from mistakes until it's too late, like thinking they're right on what they're doing until it's too late, is a cultural issue with this team. Because if we go back to what it took for them to get here, was that they assumed that their chassis was perfect and that Honda was the ones causing the issues. And if you remember, they switched to Renault, and only then they realized, oh shit, like it's not just the engine, like the chassis is screwed.
Yeah.
And I think if at the end of this season now I was hearing them go, look, we lost that title, we should have fought for it, then I'd be like, okay, like obviously they're going to reassess things and fix things. It's that conversation of, no, we were never fighting for the drivers. It's like, whoa.
Going fishing for excuses where there don't need to be any, to be honest.
Yeah, like that sounds very much to me like, no, like Honda was the issue. Like it was never the chassis.
Yeah.
Until they realize, and I'm a bit concerned it could be too late. They could get to next year, not have learned from these issues, have the exact same situation and lose another title when it's like literally on a plate for them.
Yeah.
And it's too late then, you know?
Yeah.
We'll see though. We'll see.
It could, yeah. And I think, just, touching on the Lando bit, I think he, as you say, you're saying that maybe he could have the evolution that is needed to be someone that actually ultimately is able to assert his authority.
Well, I think people under pressured situations change with age. I think the thing I've learned from dealing with a lot of people who, like, I'm not talking about racing drivers, I'm talking about, like, you know, billionaires, competitive people in other ways, like competitive people in business and other fields. People always say, oh, well, people, you know, that's their inherent way and they don't change over time. I think the thing is, the biggest changes and what molds you is when you're forced to do things under pressure and it leaves a scar, a mark on you personally, right? And generally people who think, you don't change over time, it's normally because, like you, for example, you've changed career and that's probably changed you as a person because you did it later on and so on. A lot of people get into like, okay, I get my job and then I get married and I continue through life and I don't make any big changes. So the inherent thinking is, oh, well, people don't change over time. But when you're the person who takes risks every day and you're in a high stress, high competitive situation, those scars get left for basically your whole life. So that person at 30 is very different to that person at 40, you know, like, and I know from myself, I'm a person who takes stupid risks and it's changed me a lot over the last 10 years. And I think these drivers, like Max is who he is because it was literally in some ways beaten into him. But I think Norris, Norris has been in the pressure where his whole life is to win a title, and I think it being.
But is it the case? Because
I don't think
the thing is, the way he's talked about it is, and since forever the way he's talked about it is that look, when it comes to me, even reaching Formula 1 was a surprise. Then fighting for race wins was a surprise. Getting a podium or whatever. He's always taken these things as, wow, I've done that. Great, I've done that. The point is, now when you're in this situation,
the way he reacted to the way the title went over the last few races, I don't believe that. I think now he wants that title. I think that's all well and good when you haven't won a race and when you're driving in the midfield.
100%.
I think the moment you get that first taste of
You
success,
want that again and again and again.
it's like the first time as a person you earn a little bit more money.
Yeah.
And if you ever go from having money to not having money, like being broke sucks, but when you've been well off and you go to being broke again, it is the worst feeling in the world. Like you just feel useless. And I've been there a couple of times and it's horrible. And I imagine for these drivers whose whole life revolves around this competition, when you have a sniff at it and you can literally put kind of one hand towards it and it gets snatched away, and it's not even snatched away by the competitor, it's snatched away by your own fucking team. Surely that's got to scar him. Like, surely that's got to change him.
No,
and if it doesn't, I'll be very surprised, to be honest. Like, it has to.
It should, but no, I
don't think it will.
I have to see it. I don't think it will. I'm
Maybe.
slightly, The thing is, I've not seen the sparks that I see with a Russell, the sparks that I see with an Oscar. Honestly, that inner asshole, and I think that's inherent, and I think some things are inherent when it comes to it.
Sure.
What Lando has is natural pace, and look, if it comes down to a title battle where he's fighting Oscar alone, I think he might even beat him. That won't come as a surprise for me.
Yeah.
But when it comes to being a bit of having that chip on your shoulder, something that Rosberg had, the reason why he dragged Lewis to the last race of the season twice, it's that intangible that is, it can be beaten into you. You can adapt yourself to be there. It's until you see it, you do not really take something like that for granted. As I said, fat people becoming slim is not an everyday thing, right? You are fat because you are indisciplined at the end of the day, and that's just the whole.
No.
Basic example.
Why are you body shaming people? Being fat is healthy now. Have you not heard this?
Look, I know I'm not healthy. I know I'm fat, so I'm basically body shaming myself.
I've been, my weight's fluctuated over the years. One of my favorite things was a friend of mine who's like, he's very overweight, and he's like, yeah, I know it's unhealthy, it'll probably kill me earlier, but to be honest with you, it's life with cakes or without cakes, and fucking I want cakes. I'm like, cool, fine, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
That's good.
Have some cakes, man.
But he even says, he's like, let's not pretend it's healthy. Like,
I mean,
let's
that's
not
the whole
pretend it's
bit.
healthy.
That's the whole bit, right? It's just that
you can accept something, you can be okay with something, and people shouldn't treat you like a fucking weirdo because of it.
Yeah.
Like, but let's not all. It's like smoking. Like, it's not like people go, well, if it's his decision to smoke, so we shouldn't tell him it causes cancer. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
I mean,
sorry, that's off topic.
I know. I mean, I completely went off track. Again, next season, look, for what I feel is currently the conundrum that Lando faces is he looks at a team at which he does not have much confidence, to be honest. He can continue to say in front of the media that I back my team, this, that. It's not happening. Then he has a teammate he's bloody good. He might even be the next world champion that we have. And he's continuously getting better.
Mm-hmm.
There are far too many distractions within his team. And you do not want that. As again, Peter Windsor said this thing, and he says a lot of nonsense as well, but he's actually spot on when it comes to this. He was talking about, I think I've said it quite a few times here, about the 2022 championship, where he said that Leclerc can never beat Max. Because Leclerc is not only fighting Max, he's fighting his team, he's fighting the nonsense that they deliver. Mm-hmm. He said that only 50% of Leclerc's brain is actually trying to fight with the 100% of Max's brain. And that's a mismatch. And I think that is something that's going to... I think by mid-2025 we'll know which way, or maybe by the end of 2025 we'll know which way Lando's career is going. Because if he's winning the championship, I think he's going to stick with McLaren. But if there is a sign, it's going to go either way. I'm pretty sure it's going to go either way because he's going to demand loyalty because he's shown loyalty to the team. And if he does not get that in return, he'll just pack his bag and move.
I also think there's a few teams on the grid who would happily build a team around Lando. Like, he's a
And
capable driver.
and I think that's something that I Leclerc fucked up when he signed a contract and he did not make it clear that everything is going to be around me.
Yeah.
I think he fucked up when he did that
Yeah.
because Ferrari was able to open the bank, give him an ultimate year, unlimited year contract. They're willing to do everything. And what I've seen this season is that he's not put that number one driver condition into the contract, and I think he should have done that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that would
Yeah.
have put him in a situation
Tell it to
where he
him in
would not have
Spanish.
been in today. Yeah. Where he would not have to request his team to talk to his teammate in Spanish.
Yeah.
More on that
Oh.
later.
Yeah. Look, I think honestly, if we get to the halfway point of next season and Lando is in a title fight and they're not causing, like, if Lando's in a title fight and he is comfortably beating Oscar Piastri in a title fights with someone else, and we get to the halfway point of the season and the team's still going, well, we'll see about Timor, we'll talk about.
Yeah.
I can see that as Lando just calling up another team, being like, hey, you looking for a driver? Like, I'm out of here.
Go to Audi. Go to Audi.
That said,
Build around them.
That said, I also said the same thing about Leclerc a few years ago, and he's still there. So
That's the thing, man. That's what I'm saying. These,
it's like being
either you are an asshole or you're not.
yeah.
I think
it's like domestic
Leclerc
abuse,
and-
really, isn't it?
I think that's
Let's
the
not
key
compare it to that. Let's not compare it to that.
Oh God.
Let's not.
Oh, God.
Let's
not go there.
I apologize for even mentioning it. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, moving on. Enough of Lando, enough of Max and everything. Mercedes dominance. It already bored a lot of fans. I mean, I was one
Yeah,
of
it's getting out of hand, to be honest.
Yeah, too much. 3
Did
days.
you see the post race interviews with Terry Crews?
Oh God.
George Russell standing there looking at Hamilton going, if I had a qualified higher, like I would have won easily, basically. And you're like, great, well then qualify higher. Like, cool. Like,
Good,
brilliant.
good.
As Max Verstappen famously said, if my dad had balls, he'd be my mother, like, fair enough, whatever.
Wait.
He said the other way around, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Are you
Oh, if
saying
my
Yoss
dad-
does not have balls?
Yes, yeah, that's what. Sorry. I've had very little sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus,
That
you
should
shouldn't
be
be
a
you shouldn't be reinforcing gender stereotypes. Women can have balls too now.
Oh Jesus! Come on, man. Move on from that nonsense.
Yeah. Look.
Anyway, we'll talk about Lewis as well and the kind of and how he I think apparently shut a few people up. Anyways, how the fuck
He
did
didn't, by the way,
Mercedes?
but
Yeah,
anyway.
I know.
Yeah.
How the fuck did the whole thing turn into a Mercedes dominance?
Well,
Even though I predicted it, by the way,
I mean, look. What that shows is that you understand a Mercedes car more than Mercedes do, first of all. So that's an interesting point to take on board. Look, it was obviously cold temperatures. They just work really, really well in cold temperatures. They have some issues with tire deg as well, that team, over the season. So, and I think obviously that meant that they could string it out for longer, warm the tires up quicker, get, down the road faster. And when you have a low grip surface like that and you can heat the tires up faster, obviously you can control and manage the tires a lot better as well. And that's giving you overwhelming pace. I mean, Mercedes, if you need an engineer to come and explain your car to you, I write software. Sometimes I can probably do a better job than your team is at the minute.
I'm a mechanical engineer.
No, look, I think we, like, you expected them to do well. I genuinely,
I predicted a podium. I did not think they'll dominate. They dominated.
Well,
that was a surprise.
My thinking was that basically, even with the tire warm up help, I thought their straight line deficit would and some of the the way their car characteristics are there would not go great. So you had straight lines and low speed corners. And I was like, that's not going to suit Mercedes at all. That's going to be Ferrari town. That's it. And McLaren should do okay. Just amazing. It seemed like the straight line issue wasn't that big of a deal. It seemed like everyone was close enough in the straight lines. And
I didn't understand that bit, by the way. How did the top 4 teams converge in such a small window?
I don't know. Like
And
it seems like
Alpine
they
was the
basically
fastest
just
by 10 kilometers. I mean,
yeah. I don't know
it's a parallel
until they blew
universe,
up.
apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit weird for me. I mean, for me to understand how it's just out of the blue. Look, they were within a kilometer when it comes to the straights. Mercedes apparently had no tire wear issues compared to a lot of other teams, and that is something that's, I think it's very, very, very track specific, where it's low grip, low temperature, that unique condition, and in that apparently the car works like a charm.
I just think it's a case of if they can heat the tires up well, then I think everyone else was struggling with that, and I think it makes a huge difference because
in
like,
general,
if you can
this
manage
track
the
layout
tires,
works for Ferrari, by the way. In general, if it's slightly warmer, even in double digits, I think Ferrari walks through with unless they had a better in some other way.
They had a better car, like clearly you could see it, like at various points throughout the weekend they had a better car. Yeah. But it was just the temperatures, I think. Because I think the thing is, right, it doesn't matter how good your car is. If you've got no grip on the tires, you can't use any of that car performance. So I think it's just like that was it. Just Mercedes just were able to manage the tires better than anyone else. And that in Formula One, like obviously the tires just, if you can't manage the tires, that's it. Like it doesn't matter how good your car is. Like you can't put any of that performance on track. So
yeah.
You know,
and I think it's something very interesting when it comes to Mercedes, by the way, and it's very underrated as well. They have two drivers who are probably punching above the weight of the car, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, not out driving or outperforming, but they're more or less getting the results that the car deserves, which is very rare. And I think it's evident here as well. 1-2 finish. Again, this was probably a more extenuating circumstance where the car was just... I mean, Lewis could have started the race last, and I wouldn't have been surprised if he was close to a podium even in that case.
Yeah, I mean, Russell, to be fair, like Russell was like 15, 16 seconds ahead at one point at the front. Yeah. You know, so the car was just
he had an 11-second lead when he came out at the second stop. Yeah, I think he ended the race with 7 seconds or something.
Yeah. So like he was able to pit with like a full pit window in hand. You know, like so
35 something
33 seconds. Yeah, so like
complete joke.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the thing. Like, you know, the other thing is like, even if Lewis qualified at the front, it still would have been a toss up because the thing is, Formula One fans.
Oh, so wait a minute. Sorry. Are we actually addressing the burning question? The burning question that wait. The burning question that could Lewis Hamilton have won the race if he qualified better?
The thing is, right? the thing is,
when he could have won. You're going to offend a lot of people.
Yeah, well, not really, but look, he could have won. First of all, qualify higher. It's not an excuse, you know. Perez could have been world champion if he qualified ahead of Verstappen at every race this season. Sure, you know. Like, qualify higher, that's the first thing. And if you can't do that, then you're never going to win. And good luck at Ferrari next year with literally the best qualifier on the grid. The thing is, he could have won if he qualified higher. Norris could have won the championship if these 17 things happened. The thing is, though, I don't think... The thing that people will look to because they're simple and they don't understand F1 and they have the number 44 in their profile is that it looks like you're thinking, oh, well, Hamilton was clearly much faster near the end of the race, right? That's the thing they'll point to. And that was even the thing that Hamilton was kind of alluding to was like, look at how quickly he was catching Russell at one point. But what you're completely forgetting about there is context and how Formula One works. Basically, George had a huge gap. The tyres for everybody were wearing out quickly. So George gets that gap at the front and he basically starts managing his tyres. Lewis has less to lose. He's cutting through the field. He's got like the new tyres on, whatever, and he just goes for it. And then as soon as he gets to about 5 seconds behind George, that's it. George just basically manages the pace out till the end of the race and Hamilton doesn't catch him. So it's not like we got to the final lap of the race and they were like wheel to wheel fighting each other. George basically just managed the pace out front. Hamilton caught up to around 5 seconds and then George was like, cool, I'll just match his lap time now for the rest of the race. And that's that. So if Hamilton wants to be able to go, oh, well, if I qualified better, I would have won that race. It's like, cool. Well, next time qualify better.
Let's use the correct term. It would have been a breeze.
Yes, that was his exact words. And I just don't believe that because, like, again, it's something that a load of Hamilton fans pointed to at the start of the season when I was pointing out rightly that George has been the better driver this season, which he has now on every single metric without fail, right? Like, they kept saying, oh yeah, but Hamilton was like a couple of tenths faster in the races throughout. It's like, that's fine. Like, if you're driving from the back of the grid to the front of the grid, then obviously you're going to drive faster than the guy at the front who's managing.
It's not even that. It's basically a Lewis Hamilton fan who does these. He does these charts where
you just pick one piece out that you want.
Yeah, it's basically he does these race pace charts. First of all, race pace is something that even the best race engineers that are working in Formula 1 have said that these are not conclusive data. We cannot predict race pace looking at how they've done the race, cause there are far too many variables. Even they will tell you.
Different tires, DRS, overtaking at certain points, dirty air. Like, you've got
managing
all of
the
these
car,
managing the car,
the
amount of times,
power modes,
the amount of races I saw, whoever it was, and then people like commenting on this, right? The amount of times I've seen that where I'm like, yeah, but let's look at the context of this for like 5 seconds. George Russell is in 5th place. The cars in front are a mile away and lapping much faster than him, so he can't go faster. The cars behind can't catch him, so he is now at a point where he's going to just manage the car and hope that there's a safety car or something to upset it and keep the tyres in a good working window. At the same time, Hamilton has qualified in the pit lane and is trying to catch up to 6th place in the same car, and therefore has to drive faster to get through the grid to get to him. So of course he's going to be lapping faster. It's not rocket science. Like, this is just one of those things where it's like, look, Lewis Hamilton is a brilliant driver and he's had some really good performances this year, but George has just comfortably been the better driver. And to be honest with you, Lewis to just say I would breeze past him, it's like, Lewis, come on. Like, I get you're a competitor, I get you're going to say that stuff, but you know what that's going to go down like as the fan base, and have a little bit of respect for George. He didn't even turn around and say great job to George. He said great job to Max and then said, oh, I would have breezed past. And it's like, listen, just come on, like, you know.
I mean, throughout the weekend, and this is the stuff that actually piss off a lot of people. There are a lot of people that don't like Lewis for a lot of things, but one particular thing that a lot of people actually come out and point is that he's not a team player. When it works for him, it works for him great. When it's not working for him, it's this person's fault, that fault, this, that. Look, throughout this weekend, the kind of comments that he made, I wouldn't regarding the whole what was it, the team radio where he said that this might be the last race. He said, I thought about it being my last race. Then there was a comment that, okay, are you expecting a better race? If they give me a car that does not go off track or something like that. Your teammate was almost going to win the race in Brazil. What are you even talking about? A car that is capable of winning the race. And the thing is, when you say these things, it riles up a fan base who's basically just desperate to try to actually find something so that they can outrage. And I think that's basically the currency of X right now. All these morons, that's what they do.
Yeah, and Ferrari's not going to go well for one reason, which is that shit won't fly at Ferrari, because the only reason it flies at Mercedes is because Toto Wolff is a very pragmatic and thought out person who runs the team, unlike Ferrari, who have like several different people at the top with their hands in the pie, who get really annoyed at every single thing. This is one guy like Christian Horner who has his hands on the pulse of the team, sets the direction, and his thinking is, yes, Lewis owes a lot to us for building the car, but we owe a lot to him for bringing it home, right? And Ferrari won't think like that. Ferrari will think like, you won the title because of our car, right? Yeah. That's how Ferrari think. So when he goes to Ferrari, if he does any of that shit, they're going to be like, Lewis, you need to shut the fuck up on the radio. And that immediately is going to have this.
They did that to Leclerc this weekend, after he was pretty much robbed due to their utter nonsense. They did it to him. What is he going to expect? It's just that, I mean, anyways, leaving all that nonsense aside, this is a very basic thing. What Lewis was doing, and even if you keep Lewis aside, you just need to analyze the last stint that was going on. In that last stint, it was not Lewis alone who was being very, very quick in terms of closing the gap to George. There were two other drivers that were doing that.
The Ferraris
Both
as
the
well.
Ferraris. Yeah, they were within a tenth of what Lewis was doing. Why? Because again, George is managing his tires at the front. All these three drivers were catching up to him. And throughout the race, that had not happened. Why? Because George was pushing at the time. And George had around 3 to 4 tenths over all of them.
George
George
is a brilliant, smart driver, and he doesn't get the credit because basically, for some strange reason, you would think that comprehensively beating a 7-time world champion over the course of a season in every possible metric, even when you've had DNFs, would give you the benefit of the doubt that you are one of the best drivers on the grid. And it seems like no one outside of this podcast does. Not even Toto Wolff and Mercedes themselves. Like, it seems like this podcast is the only place. In fact, George, if you're listening, if you want to come on the George Russell Praise Hour, we'll have you anytime.
Yeah. At least we praise you, man.
Yeah. Like, it's getting ridiculous. It's getting ridiculous.
And yeah, thanks for pointing it out. But I didn't like Lewis's conduct with George sitting next to him. It wasn't that great. And again, he's what he's tried to portray in the last few race weekends, and at least throughout this race weekend, was it's the team whose job is there to provide me results, and I'm sorry, that's just not how it works. And even he did that until qualifying. He continued to say he had a brilliant Friday. He topped FP1, FP2. When he was questioned in the media, he said, "Well, let's see what car they give me." What a fucking ridiculous point is that? See,
the thing is, like, one, it's not even like a Lando Norris Baku situation. You don't have the excuse if something went wrong. He made the same mistake 2 or 3 times in qualifying and cost himself the qualifying. So it's not like there was anything else.
This time around, both of them had the similar opportunity, and what happened? It was Lewis who made the mistake. And there are still some morons who are on Twitter. They're saying that this was sabotage. They say what they're claiming is apparently there's some, I don't even want to name the guy. He said the way the car, the back went out, it does not happen. God.
George qualified on pole and won the race in the same car. So, like, is it sabotage, or is it that George slowed down at the end of the race? Because how do you explain Lewis Hamilton catching him and coming through the field if the car is so bad? Like, you know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense at all. And honestly, like, he made mistakes. He couldn't get on top of it in the way George can. And I've said this. There is a viable excuse for this, which is just Hamilton can't get on top of the car. And what happens in those situations when you have a brilliant driver who's not comfortable is generally he qualifies poorly and then races well. And that is exactly what has happened with Hamilton over the course of the season. Unfortunately for Hamilton, his teammate is a guy who is brilliant at every part of it this season. And it's just people who don't want to give anyone else credit because they feel like if you give any other driver credit,
honestly, there's no driver. I mean, I've seen Alonso get unfairly criticized, the whole Herbert situation. I've seen how Sky Sports made a mockery of Vettel. I mean, the entire Martin Brundle suggesting that Sebastian Vettel might have peripheral vision issues. That kind of nonsense that he was uttering.
Yeah.
And here all we have is excuses. The last 3 fucking years have been excuses.
Like, even during this race, they brought up the shelf thing and we're like, oh, well, I think he's proving some people wrong today. And it's like, what are you talking about?
It's pathetic journalism. Journalism. It's called third grade. It's basically just one level over Playboy. That's the standard at which David Croft was operating this weekend. And again, even I'm not probably getting to Sky Sports.
Honestly, I like Crofty normally, but from the very start of the weekend, I posted up something which was, what was it? George was cut off by Joe, I think, at one point during practice.
Yeah.
And Joe had done it the day before. And it was the engineer on George having a very normal conversation of, this guy did this yesterday. Like, every driver on the grid does it. And Crofty got properly annoyed. Like, he was properly annoyed. And I'm like, has something happened behind the scenes? Like, has George Russell gone on and been like, I think you're a prick, Crofty, or something? Like, has something happened? Because it feels like, but it just, maybe it is just something like a perspective thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm seeing the wrong things, but it just genuinely feels like the team, Toto, the journalists, the fans, no one wants to give George Russell any credit. And I'm wondering, has he done something? Like, was he on Epstein's Island or something? Like, like genuinely, I just don't like. With Lando, I'm like, Lando was praised by most people until he started fighting Max. So there is a genuine, like, I understand how F1 fans are. Yeah. But with George, like, I get why Hamilton fans wouldn't like George because he's making Hamilton look bad. But it's like everybody doesn't seem to want to give him any credit ever. And I don't understand it. It just doesn't make any sense. Even after this
race, if you're not giving him credit, what the fuck are you actually doing?
Yeah. And the other thing,
by the way, this was a weekend he beat Lewis Hamilton, prime Lewis Hamilton, who was fastest in Q1, Q2. Mm-hmm. He was the favorite for pole for a lot. I tweeted. Apologies to all Lewis Hamilton fans. I jinxed it. I put that out. But he was under pressure. He could have easily lost pole position. And you know what would the narrative have been? Whenever the car is good, Lewis performs and he beats George.
Mm-hmm.
But this time around, the car was good, and ultimately George got the job done. That is what it should be.
Yeah, it's just not true either. In Spa, George beat him. He just had a DSQ.
Yeah.
In Silverstone,
he was supposed to.
Even in Silverstone, if he didn't win, like, he would have been second or third on the grid. It would have been a quality session, and it would have been like, okay, this is one time where Hamilton beat him. Like,
and he actually touched on it, by the way. I think it was an interview with ESPN where he said that, look, the problem with my season has been that whenever the car is good, that's when the DNFs have happened. The DNF and he actually said that in Silverstone I would have won. He's actually said that I would have won in Silverstone, and then the next race in it was Spa. Again, that disqualification, it hurt a lot. If you add those points, I'm miles ahead. And he actually said that. Yeah. But again, he was very respectful, and maybe that's why Team LS did not get outraged.
I get when drivers, like, if Hamilton had said that on the radio, like on the in-lap, he had gone, if I qualified higher, or even in like a really quick post-race interview afterwards and stuff like that, I get it. The adrenaline is running, all of these different things. But they had come out, they had taken their time, they had gotten in the car, they had driven all the way down there. And it's like, okay, you get it when it's like a pressured situation.
It was a weird Lewis giving cold shoulder over something that didn't need to.
But literally, like, he had the forethought. It wasn't like he was fuming annoyed, because he had the forethought to be like, oh, this was brilliant. Oh, and congratulations to Max. Like, he could have just said, oh, my teammate did a really good job today. We'll work hard for the next one, but it's good to have the car back. That's what I expected. But that kind of comment of, if I had qualified better. Like, I genuinely, if George was different, like, if that was Michael Schumacher and a teammate, right? Let's just say Lewis and Michael Schumacher. I guarantee you Michael Schumacher would have literally walked over to the mic and be like, well, you should have qualified better then. Yeah. Like, he would have. Or he would have said it to the press straight away afterwards.
Yeah.
He's lucky that George is a nice guy, because George, like, if that was Verstappen, anyone else, they would have been like, what are you talking about?
By the way, Max Verstappen dropped a brilliant bombshell. He said, in a McLaren, I would have won a few races ago.
Mm-hmm.
And in a Mercedes in 2021, I would have won comfortably.
Yeah.
And he's correct. He's actually right. Honestly, he's right.
Yeah.
It's ultimately, and again, it's basically Lewis Hamilton hate hour, but it's not supposed to be. The thing is, he's doing all these things. If he won the race, got pole position, won the race, no one would have said anything.
He made a couple of mistakes in qualifying, and he drove a brilliant race from a poor starting position.
Yeah.
And if he had just said, like, the reason I'm bashing him here is because he's put this on himself. Like, you can't do a shit job in qualifying and then throw your teammate under the bus. Like, you can't do that. That's just, like, what are you doing? Like, it's fine in the heat of the moment in the car. If Bono had come on and said, oh, good recovery, and he's like, oh, if I had a fucking qualified better, would have fucking breezed through that. That's fine. You're like, adrenaline's running, you're still in the car, you say stupid things. But it's just like, it's a compound of all these things.
He continued doing that. If you saw the whole thing with the three were sitting in the car, He had his shoulder to George. He didn't even want to look at him.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
George tried to break the ice once or twice, and then he didn't really bother. And I think, the thing is, the problem is right now Mercedes is at this stage where they're like 2 races left.
Thank God. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I just think
enough of this nonsense. I mean, enough
he's
of
been
this
saying
nonsense.
it all. The problem is, if this was an isolated incident where he said this, I'd be like, okay, look, he's had a tough final year with Mercedes. It's getting to him, and he's had a bit of an outburst, and he said something stupid. The problem is, it's like he's saying this stuff all the time over the entire year. And that's why, for me, I'm like, all right, enough's enough, Lewis. Just admit you're not doing a good enough job. Like, he did admit it at one point, and then basically, like, at one point in the season, he admitted it, and then was very quick to kind of, like, over the course of the rest of the season, to kind of point on home, like, oh, it's not me, it's the car. Because at one point, he did say, I'm not doing a good enough job. And it was like, okay, like, fair enough. And then since then, it's been
honestly,
this bump, 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 bump.
And honestly, if Lewis was not British, he would have been right now thrown to the curb until now. The 3 seasons that he's had, a lot of people would have done that. And the fact that they've not is entirely because he's British. Honestly, that's it.
Yeah.
There's no other reason behind it. We saw it happen with Vettel. We saw it happen with Alonso. That's how quickly things change. Fuck, we saw it with Franco Colapinto this weekend. Have they lost their fucking mind? What the fuck are they even talking about? He out-qualified Alonso, was quicker than him on merit, and he had a crash. And everyone is like, his prospects for being a Red Bull driver is over. He fucking outperformed Albon. What more do you want from him? That's raw pace.
Yeah, yeah. And like, he's a rookie. It's like his 4th race, something like that. And if you look at it, it's like where he came in through. It's like, okay, look, he's a rookie. He was pushing to the limit. He was destroying his teammate, who everyone agrees is a brilliant driver, and he clipped the inside of a wall. This has happened to, like, Charles Leclerc has done this. Like, this has happened to brilliant drivers. Like,
Charles Leclerc did that at Ferrari.
Singapore, George Russell. Like, like Lewis Hamilton has done this in the past. All of these great drivers have done this. This has just happened. He's a rookie, and he hasn't even had a full season, And you know what? There's a reason why I think that, and I touched on this last week, I think, why Horner genuinely might consider someone like Colapinto for the second seat.
Right now he might, yeah.
The reason is, see that crash? He has that crash, right? And literally, the next night, he's going in the interview, and he's just calm as anything, chilled out, whatever, gets back in the car, and has a great race, flies on through the race. He's in a Williams. He can't do a lot, but he had a brilliant race.
He was P13 or something.
Yeah, but he had a good race, considering that he had crashed the car in qualifying. A lot of other young drivers, their confidence would be down here. He's just like, happens. Yeah. Just continues on. Like,
I can't.
I don't see. I don't see Lawson having that attitude.
I'll be honest. A lot of punditry needs improvement. The kind of nonsense that they go around with, there's a lot of sensationalism, and honestly, there's a lot of bad faith stuff that goes on. And the kind of nonsense that Crofty... I mean, I tweeted about this where he said that Toto Wolff said that Lewis Hamilton... He said that someone claimed that Lewis Hamilton's shelf life had reached his shelf life. Toto never said that.
No.
Toto never made that statement. And I cannot fucking believe everyone is misreporting this. Are you a fucking illiterate? Why are you doing that? It gets on my nerves.
He said his exact words were, every driver has a shelf life, so it's something you have to consider.
Yeah.
Which is a perfectly reasonable statement. Like, what are you telling me, that like a driver can drive into his 60s? Like, of course, it's just a reasonable statement. And his worry was we could be on a path to that, basically, is what he's saying.
And he'd have to confront Lewis and talk about it. That's the thing is, and he specifically mentions this, that the thing is, he's clarified the comments twice or thrice in different interviews. He did one with ESPN, The Guardian, and I think once in the press conference on Thursday or Friday, whatever it is. Thrice. And you are still harping upon something that he's clarified is not said.
If I'm honest, if it is true, which I kind of believe because of the way Toto said it, that he learned about Lewis going to Ferrari from Sainz, and then called Lewis, and Lewis was like, oh shit, I suppose we need to talk now then.
Yeah.
If I'm Toto Wolff and I have given you a fucking championship winning car for 8 seasons in a row, right? 8 seasons in a row, and you won 6 of those, and we backed you to the hilt and gave you millions of dollars, and you can't even have the courtesy to call me up and say, look, I've a good shot at getting Ferrari. I want to try it. I'm giving you the heads up so that you can like decide what you're going to do here. If you don't have the courtesy to do that, then if I was Toto, I'd be like, yeah, Lewis is fucking shit this year, isn't he? He's really, well, Ferrari's getting the worst version. At least we had the good Ferrari. I'd be the guys who was out there like, yeah, my ex got fat, you know, and I'm looking good. You know, like honestly, Toto Wolff is a far better person than most of these pricks. So like, you know, he was so nice and reasonable about it, and all he said was, every driver has a shelf life, and it's something we need to consider.
I have a shelf life as well. He specifically,
exactly.
Even I have a shelf life. Again, and you know, I hate in the rundown I gave you, I specifically mentioned one thing, my pet peeve, and this is actually my pet peeve, and that's why I'm actually riled up 2 hours into the podcast.
Right,
because it fucking infuriates me when people, and I actually went off against Aldous as well, one of the content creators, because it's utter fucking nonsense when people who are in at least some position of respectable power, if people listen to you, you should know better. You should not drive negative and incorrect narratives. First of all, let's talk about Damon Hill, because he did the whole thing with this, specifically about the shelf life, because he quoted something and he said that Toto, something on the lines of Toto, basically said that Lewis proved Toto wrong again with the shelf life, and
it's just you would think that like when it's like Mark fucking 33 or whatever that guy is on Twitter, you know, that steals all the articles.
Okay, yeah.
Like when it's someone like that clipping it, and it's just some moron on Twitter who's just trying to get attention. Yeah. You're like, okay, fine, whatever. But you would think if your job is to be a representative of Formula One to a global audience, or like you're a world champion, right? Like you'd think if you saw that and you were like, wow, you'd think you would at least go, can you get me the clip? Like, can I watch the clip?
Yeah.
You know, that would be the literally, that would be the least you could do, is just to go and watch the clip.
And because, you know why he'll do that?
And then Nelson Piquet gets shouted at for saying it.
Yeah, because he's the fucking driver, and you know he's an F1 pundit. What if his quotes are taken out of context, used incorrectly, and used by people 3 to 5 years down the line, and used where they're not supposed to fit? This
is the other thing. You think these guys would know better because of the amount of times that it's taken out of context.
They've been on the receiving end. They've been on the receiving end of this.
Yeah, and the reason I was saying I brought up the Nelson Piquet thing here is because it's exactly what I've been saying about the likes of, like, when you come to politics, about CNN and so on, which is when people, like for example, Nelson Piquet said something that in itself, on its own, in isolation, wasn't racist, but because of the context, apparently it was, right? I don't know. I didn't watch it. I don't hear it. I just take people's word that, right, he obviously said it in a bad way, because otherwise people wouldn't be so crazy as to go on about this stuff, would they? But the problem is, when these same people then say things out of context like this, it makes me go, maybe they were wrong about the other thing. And you stop listening to them.
Exactly.
Like, this is the problem.
And what pissed me off is Damon Hill today went on a rant on X, and he said that things are a lot toxic, this, that, I might think about leaving the particular, leaving X, moving to Blue Sky or Threads. And then at the same time, he does this nonsense. Mate, if you're the one who is not being responsible, who is misquoting people, then why do you expect people to actually take you seriously? Why do you expect people to treat you with respect when you are not treating whatever Toto said with respect? If you're the same culprit, how the fuck is anyone different?
I generally like Crofty, like, you know, but this weekend was just odd. I don't know what
nonsense.
I don't know what,
fucking nonsense.
Like I said, it wasn't just that, but he also, like, he went on a rant about George and his engineer in
I didn't
FP.
Understood the whole thing.
No, and I didn't understand. And it was even Martin Brundle, I think it was sitting beside him, and obviously was like, yeah, okay. Like, he was kind of like, well, it happens.
Move on.
Yeah, and it was like, he was getting properly annoyed about it. So,
yeah,
I don't know if something's happened. Maybe Toto and George have, like, you know, wouldn't give him a lift from the airport or something, and he's pissed off. I don't know. Like something very.
Yeah.
Maybe he's just one of these people who doesn't sleep well. And he was in Vegas. Like
I mean, just got married, by the way. So
there you
things
go.
change.
Yeah, there you go.
Been there,
That's what-
Crofty. I'm pretty sure my wife's not going to listen to this. So please, no one, don't clip
Mine
it
can't
and send
speak
it to her.
English, so it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, made
yeah,
the right
yeah.
call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, by the way, this is the first incident, and the second one, it's in escalation. And Aldous, I think you'll be aware of him. He's one of the F1 content creators, kind of one of the earlier ones.
Yeah.
And he wrote
He's got that voice where he talks like it. I can't do it. I used to be able to do it, but yeah.
Yeah.
This is how
I mean,
it
even
does.
he used to be able to do it. I don't know what he does right now, because he clearly does not. I mean, the thing is, he said that after the kind of comments that I think it was, after the kind of comments Norris and Zach Brown had made about Lewis and Max only winning because they have fast cars, this season is a lesson for them. Something on those lines. Neither of them have made those comments.
No.
Neither Zach Brown nor Lando Norris have made those comments. Here are the comments that Lando Norris made. At the end of the 2020 season, when Lewis was a 7-time world champion, he was questioned what his views about him winning a title in a dominant fashion or something. And Lando had a bad race at the time. He said that, okay, good, he's won the championship, but again, he's fighting against Bottas. That's it. That's it.
Which is a fair statement. Yeah.
Exactly. Now coming to Zach Brown. What Zach Brown said. He said that in 2023, when Red Bull, by the way, won 21 of the 22 races, he said that any driver could be world champion in that Red Bull. That Red Bull being the 2023 Red Bull, which had 21 wins out of 22 races.
Again, fair statement. Like, well, what he should have clarified is, if Max Verstappen's not your teammate. If he had just said that, but
I mean,
that
course.
was his point.
But
Was if you
that's
replaced,
implied.
yes,
Exactly.
his point was if you swapped out Max Verstappen and put
Yeah.
Norris or Alonso or Leclerc or Russell into that car, they would have been
They've
world
been.
champions.
Yeah.
Obviously.
It's implied. But then again, I have no issue with Max taking umbrage to that and confronting Zach and saying that since you say that I only win the titles with the fastest car this
These
year.
are competitors. It's fine. Yeah, that's
Michael Jordan did that every time.
yeah.
Yeah, and it works for him. It worked for Max. Kudos. He's fine. He does
It's fun.
something like
it's
this.
bantery. They're winding each other
I'll
up. They're
fucking
being competitors.
love that bit.
So do I.
No problem
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
And apparently he even went on Viaplay, I think it's the
Dutch, isn't it?
Dutch one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he, on Viaplay, said that, on Sky Sports, he said that I told Zach Brown live on Sky Sports, and he specified Sky Sports because it's the British channel. So yeah, and I mean, he nailed it, and he should.
Yeah.
My problem, and again, I have zero issues with fans who are using this for clicks. Do that, go ahead and do it, because what else anyone does anyway.
Yeah.
My problem is when you're someone of, I'd say, authority. If you have 60, 70,000 subs or whatever it is, it means there are people that listen to you. But if you cannot even be authentic, I don't know, it's even about being authentic. It's about not even having a very basic courtesy or dedication to the kind of work you're doing.
Yeah.
You're not even going back and looking at the comments and when they were made and actually understanding a very basic fact. They were sensible comments. They were not... You're basically acting like a troll at the point. That's what you're doing. And
100%.
that pisses me off, honestly. That's something that's basically, if I say that Lando Norris is an elite driver, something that actually happened with a lot of Max Verstappen fans. When I said Lando Norris is an elite driver, it does not mean that Max is not.
Yeah.
It does not mean that Oscar is not, that Lewis is not, stuff like that. And it's just, a fan can do that. But if, look, this can happen. We've done a podcast, someone will clip this out, and we've mentioned that Lando was brilliant. So, a very dumb idiot can make a conclusion that Oscar Piastri was shit, or Max was shit. and then just run with it.
Yep.
And that's the dumb point. And that's
Yeah.
don't do that. Just don't
And
do
look,
that.
I'll
Good
just say it
faith
right
stuff.
now. I'll just say it right now. Lewis Hamilton is clearly approaching his shelf life. Clip it. Go crazy.
Yeah.
Lewis Hamilton has been comprehensively the shitter driver in Mercedes this year. I'm just doing some clips for anyone who wants to take this out of context.
Yeah.
But I'm actually not. This is actually they're taking it in full
This is
context.
with context.
Yeah, this is with context. George Russell would beat Lewis Hamilton in a title fight this year, 100%. There you go. There's some clips people can take. Go for it.
I think, yeah. But
Max
that's true.
Verstappen cheated in 2021. No. It's not.
Yeah, basically we are losing whatever followers we have left. So good job doing that. Any other fan base you want to target? You basically gone with everyone.
Alonso's too old to win a title. Hulkenberg is shit. Leclerc hasn't got the stomach to win a title. Oh, and
Franco
Oscar Piastri is
Colapinto.
possibly
Franco
the worst
Colapinto.
driver. No, I won't bash Franco Colapinto.
Yeah, apparently he has a lot of fans now.
Yeah.
He's becoming very famous.
I'm doing a deal with him to buy the Falklands off him after he wins it back from Britain. So,
By the way, did you check the comments of our last part?
no.
There's one Argentinian who
God.
gets very offended with the Germans moving to Argentina.
Nine. Das ist nicht so gut.
I know.
Nicht so gut.
I was tempted to
oh
tell her
my
the reason,
God.
but anyways, no point. Anyways,
No,
enough
está
with
bien.
the rant. God, my throat is. It will be dead by the morning.
Yeah.
Ferrari, by the way, the greatest team in Formula One.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
What did you make of the whole? Okay, first of all, I think there are two parts that are actually I wanted to break it down into. The first is, I think Carlos Sainz showed today why Red Bull did not pick him.
Yes. Yeah. Look, I think the thing is, though, I think it makes sense for Red Bull not to pick him because they don't want someone who will challenge Max, right? And like,
No, not because of that.
no, but because if
he's
he has
not he's
not
not
a team
listening
player.
to the team. Yeah,
yeah,
that's it.
Like he's not a team player. But my point is, like, there's two parts to that. You want the team player because you want someone who won't challenge Max, right? That's
No,
the key.
you want a team player because he won't screw your other driver.
Yeah, but my point is, like, if there's a point where Sainz can go for a win and it is critical for Max's title, Sainz is going to tell you to go fuck yourself because that's just who he is, right? So you just
But
don't
it's
want
not
that
even
situation.
reaching at that point, right? What Sainz was doing this race was basically his sole aim was trying to finish ahead of Leclerc, and that is something
Yeah.
that has become evident in quite a few races
But
this season.
to be honest with you as well, like, I mean,
It compromises Ferrari. That's the whole
can
problem.
can I just be blunt to Ferrari and Leclerc though?
Yeah.
Like, if you drop your driver for a comprehensively worse driver who has some titles, then
Jesus.
obviously I'll get that one in as well. No, like, if you drop your driver at the start of the season, and it's not like you're dropping a driver for performance reasons. Like, I know Lewis Hamilton is like a legacy in Formula One and so on, but you already have a number one driver. You're not trying to, like, you know, Sainz is performing very, very high level for the team and is a brilliant number two. He was never supposed to be a number one driver anyway. And then you drop him at the start of the season to get a driver who is near the end of their career to come in, clearly more for marketing value than performance, given where he is at the minute, right? And all of this stuff. Like, you know, they could have got Daniel Ricciardo. It probably would have been an upgrade on Lewis Hamilton. But then, basically, like, of course Sainz isn't going to play the team game. Of course he's not. And even less so once he's got a win in Australia. He's already got his last win with the team. He could just, like, he doesn't
also
care
got a win
anymore.
in Mexico, by the way.
Yeah, he doesn't care anymore. He's
point is
just
not
there to
that.
prove how good he is. That's all he wants to do.
The point is not that again, and that's valid. He should. I mean, he's free to do whatever he wants to. The problem is, if there was even a slight bit of hope that Red Bull would have wanted to make. Again, there were rumors, right, that Red Bull would have wanted to trade Carlos in instead of Franco Colapinto. suppose there was even 5% truth to that kind of thing, and even Red Bull had something in the back of their mind that okay, maybe not 2025, but if things don't go our way, we'll approach Sainz for 2026.
Mm-hmm.
That's done. That's over.
Uh,
They are not picking him up, and the reason being, the biggest reason is, look, first of all, he quite clearly, whatever team orders were given, he ignored them.
mm-hmm.
He was before Charles was even told. The thing is, it all boiled down to that particular moment where Charles completely lost it. And I think Charles being soft is also something we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But the first biggest thing is, first stint, Charles was suffering with tires and he let him through voluntarily. Second stint, Carlos was struggling with tires and Carlos continued to hold Charles back for 3 laps. Despite almost, I think it was three consecutive times where he was told to swap positions. Once you do that, you are basically, what you're trying to do is that one driver is trying to play the team game and you want to benefit from it. But once you're ahead, you continue to start doing, let's not fight with each other, let's not do this and that.
He didn't tell him in Spanish,
It's a duplicitous
though.
nature, right?
Look, Carlos Sainz's English isn't great, to be fair.
Yeah, of course. But again, the point is, and then you ultimately, when you're told not to ultimately overtake your teammate, you do that. And it compromised Ferrari to an extent, because Leclerc in his final stint, he was much faster and he could have, again, we don't know if he could have challenged Lewis. I think he had, 5 or 6 laps younger tires.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he could have, maybe he couldn't. We don't know that. The point was that if something like this happens when there's a title on the line, that's utter nonsense. Right?
Yeah, sure, but like,
Would a Mercedes or a... Look, the 2 prospective seats where Carlos could go in the near future is Red Bull and Mercedes. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any other seat. I
And
don't think even
both of
McLaren
them-
takes him right now.
Both of them have been dealing with a driver. Both of them have dealt with a driver that won't take team orders anyway. So, yeah. Look at like Checo and
Checo does not take team orders.
No. But Verstappen is my point.
Why would Verstappen take team order? Verstappen is the lead driver, right?
No, but Verstappen in Brazil, was it 2023, 2022?
Yeah.
This is my
2022.
point. These teams know what these drivers are like, and I don't think the thing
Would
is
they
like
take a Carlos?
I think if there are other drivers underperforming, they need someone. Yes, but the thing is,
I
the
don't
problem
think
is, listen, the problem is, I think realistically, right? Charles Leclerc is not thinking about Red Bull because Red Bull might, because they're stressing and struggling, might talk about considering Carlos Sainz at the minute. I think Carlos Sainz thinks that that's just a fucking, like, it's some sort of tactic, it's something else. They've turned him down already. He's probably like, I don't care. And also, in fairness to Carlos,
What's next for him?
in
then?
fairness to Carlos, he's played the team game, right?
He hasn't.
He's played the team
have
game
been-
in his career a few times, and he's been dropped, like, repeatedly. Like, he was dropped in Renault when he was a brilliant asset for Renault because they got a better driver in, a more marketable driver in, right? He's dropped at Ferrari when he was doing a really, really good job alongside Leclerc because they got a more marketable driver in. I think Carlos Sainz is basically at the point in his career where he's just like, I'm just going to be the fastest fucking driver out there and I want to prove I'm better than Leclerc and these guys, which he's not, unfortunately for him. But like,
That's the problem.
that's what he wants to prove. But playing the team game has gotten him nowhere. So I think he's kind of just like, I don't
If
care
he's
anymore.
sensible, then what is his path to a top team right
He's
now?
going to go to Williams and he's going to try and be the top dog at Williams, which he probably will be. Like, that will be where, at the moment, that's what it looks like it's going to be. And then,
But you're
realistically,
basing that on an assumption that
look, the thing is, he's already been turned down as the quote-unquote number 2 driver from the top teams. So I think his thinking now is
What
the
is-
only way I'm going to a top team.
wait, so your assumption is that Williams is a team that is going to ultimately chart its way to the top, and Carlos is going to be the flag bearer.
That's his hope, right? I'm not saying that's what will happen. I'm saying that's what he hopes will happen. And his
think so?
his thinking about Mercedes and Red Bull is, the clear thing at Red Bull is Verstappen's don't want Sainz in there, right? They don't. They already had a chance to bring him in when he was all squeaky clean, a good driver at number 2, all this stuff, and they said no. So
Yeah.
I think he
But
knows
if
like the
Verstappen
only
is gone
way.
in 2026, then what?
If Verstappen's gone in 2026 and they need a strong driver who is willing to fucking be a prick behind the wheel, which is what they kind of want for a stopgap, then maybe they call on him because he's that. Maybe they don't, but maybe that's his thinking. He's like, look, playing the team game hasn't got me anywhere, so I'm just going to show how good I am and see where it goes. Like, what has he got to lose at this point?
Any possible chance at a top team,
I just don't
honestly.
think it. But he doesn't want to be a number 2 at another team. I don't think.
Yeah, the thing is not that you want to be a number 2. The thing is that what you're trying to do is you're trying to reach a point where you place yourself in a position where you can compete. Nico Rosberg was supposed to be a number 2, right? But he didn't ultimately when the chance came, he seized on it.
Sure.
You have to place yourself in that particular situation where you can take advantage.
He's not going to Red Bull anyway. There's no
He's
way.
not
they're
going to
changing
Red Bull
their
or
mind on
Mercedes
that.
either. I
But
don't think
he
if
wasn't
Toto
going
looks
to
at
Red Bull
that,
before this weekend. Like Red Bull weren't. There's no like Red Bull just talk about that as like a. Do you know what that is? That is that's a contract negotiation where basically Williams is holding out for a load of cash for Franco Colapinto, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Horner knows that basically if he wanted to, like regardless of what's going on, if Horner wanted to and he called up Sainz tomorrow, he could get Sainz into the team. He knows that. So he's basically saying to Williams, all right, well, you want to play this game with Franco Colapinto, I could just take Sainz off your hands tomorrow and fuck you. It's a contract negotiation. So I think I don't think there's any chance of it happening.
No, that's fine. But would you close the door completely? Because look, what did he gain today? He didn't really gain anything. At the end of the third or fourth, it doesn't do anything for him.
Sure, but
It's
playing
done.
the team, what does playing the team game benefit him? Nothing either.
It shows Red Bull that again today. By the way, it was
Shows Red
this
Bull you're a
weekend
pliable number 2 that could sit alongside Verstappen.
that you can be a team player.
But they've already
Possibly
made their
get a
minds
chance.
up on that.
They haven't, right?
They have.
Because they haven't. They don't.
Once Red Bull makes their mind up, they make their mind up. And Carlos Sainz knows that as well as you and me do.
Yeah, but who else is going there? That's the
Colapinto
problem,
or
right?
Lawson. That's
I doubt Lawson is going there either. And
I
I
think,
think
look,
Colapinto
they
is
turned
too
Sainz
raw
down.
to actually send. To actually
sure,
be
but
in that
they've
position.
turned Sainz down. And when is the last time Red Bull has changed its mind on anything? They don't do that.
But it has not been this cornered, right?
But they
When was the
don't
last
do
time
it.
it was cornered in this manner?
Yeah, I know, but they just don't do it.
Yeah.
Look, Horner was cornered on Sergio Perez, and he put his foot down and kept Sergio Perez. Like
And
that,
it's not worked out.
No, but the response was like everyone, including Horner, knows what a shit job he's doing right now. And when everyone says they have to replace him, obviously they're going to replace him. He's out with the summer. Horner's response is, fuck you, I'm keeping him for the rest of the season. Horner will not be cornered by anyone. So, like, if they've made their decision on Sainz, they're not going back on that decision. And I think Sainz knows that. And honestly, the other thing is, look, we have to basically also take into account that maybe in the car he just doesn't give a shit. This team has thrown him out like yesterday's fucking bathwater. They just don't care about him. So why should he care about the team, you know?
That's fine. That's fine. But in that case, there is literally no future back in a top team. And
Maybe
if he's not, and if he's not thinking on those lines, it hurts him in the, you can say, in the short run and the long run either.
Well, I just think there's no future. He's probably resigned himself to the fact that there's no future back anyway, unless like one of the top drivers moves. And in that case, they're going to want another top driver. So I have to prove I'm a top driver. Like, that's probably the logic.
Looking at this season, do you think he's proved to be a top driver?
No,
he's proved to be a solid second driver, and that is the kind of
he's proved to be a solid second driver,
there, right?
He's proved to be a solid second driver, or genuinely, I think, could be the top dog at a team that is working its way up to the point where he could earn himself the chance to be there if that team won a title. So, like, if you know, like you're talking. I made the comparison before, which I know a lot of people will get annoyed about, but like you're talking a Jenson Button style story, right? A driver who wasn't the guy that everyone thought was going to win a championship, but earned the chance to be there at the time that a championship was won, and then won it against a driver who was also not a top tier, was a number 2 driver, like realistically, was a Barrichello. So like, you know, I just think Sainz is unfortunately in a position where he is a brilliant driver, but like, look, Perez is a great driver. Look at how shit he looks alongside Verstappen. Right? Like, look what happened.
No,
This is the
that's
problem
fine.
Sainz has. Sainz is not on the level of a Leclerc. He's not on. I don't even think he's on the level of a Norris anymore. Like, Norris has grown to the
he's
point,
he's not. He wasn't by the end of the second year. The two were together.
so-
It was quite obvious that Norris was better.
he's just not a top tier driver. But
Yeah.
I think
Just
this is
that,
kind of
the problem is when after this race, both Marco and Horner are going to look at themselves and they'll just say that, told ya.
I just don't think
That's
the
why
chance was there.
That's why the whole thing. I mean, yeah. Again, it's not about the chance being there or not. It's just ultimately they're just proven right. They found out that whatever suspicions they had with Carlos, even though he actually came out this weekend and said that me and Max can work together brilliantly and stuff like that. He gave an interview on this. It's just that when you do these actions, it makes actions speak louder than words, and this was as explicit as it
This
could
is
be.
why I think Lawson is problematic for Red Bull at the moment after Mexico.
Precisely.
Precisely. But this is also why I think that like Red Bull make their mind up very quick, and I think that's why all of a sudden the Franco Colapinto thing comes out, because I think that Horner is so concerned about any sort of problems that basically as soon as that happened in Mexico, he probably thought to himself, "Oh, this isn't going to work." And when they make their mind up at Red Bull, it's like this. And I think Sainz probably knows that as well as anyone else. And I think
Could be,
look, the other thing is, maybe there is no thinking behind it. Maybe he's just genuinely pissed off at Ferrari and at Red Bull as well for, maybe he doesn't care because like he clearly would have been a great number two. We all agreed that he would have been a brilliant number two. And maybe it's just like Red Bull are keeping Perez over the course of a season when like Sainz is like, I'm a far better driver and you won't even give me a chance. Like Ferrari, he's done everything he possibly could to be the perfect number two driver at Ferrari, and they just threw him out at the start of the season for no reason other than Hamilton's available. Like, you know,
but look, if Hamilton's available, you'll
sure,
if
and like
you
I
would
know
pick
that.
him.
I know that.
That's the whole
But
thing, right?
Surely,
it's just unlucky.
if you're,
It's honestly just unlucky.
it's unlucky, but also
Nothing more than
if you're Sainz, it's got to piss you off. Like, you're doing everything you can at your. Like, he's just not
but
good
the thing
enough
is,
to be a
it's just-
number one,
Yeah,
and that's that. Like,
that's the whole reality. Now moving to the number one driver, by the way. Remember there was I think we did this podcast with Ahmed being there, and I specifically suggested that I think after Barcelona where again Carlos had jumped Leclerc, and it said one thing. I think Charles is just too nice.
Yeah.
And today he basically vindicated me when he shouted on the team radio that I'm too nice, and he's 100% correct. He is too nice. And that's the problem with him.
Maybe this is what Carlos is doing. Maybe.
What is he doing?
Maybe Ferrari have pulled Carlos Sainz aside and said, listen.
Oh, geez, I know where you're going with
Hamilton's
this.
being a prick over at the other team. And he's going to be a bigger prick when he comes in here. So can you do us a favor and we'll give you a few million quid. Will you just prepare Leclerc?
Yeah.
Logically, that's probably what's happening.
Because Ferrari is capable of that kind of 3D chess, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they have the history of doing such brilliant masterstrokes.
If this was Red Bull,
they can't
if this
fucking
was
time at pit stop.
they don't know when it's wet out. So yeah, like look, if this was Red Bull or Mercedes, I would say that jokingly, but part of my brain would go maybe.
Yeah.
Ferrari, it's like nah.
Yeah. I think the problem with Charles is the way he's conducted, his biggest problem is he was conditioned with a Sebastian Vettel and a Marcus Ericsson as a teammate who played the team game for the most part. Except
Vettel's a genuinely nice guy, outside of the car. Yeah.
Exactly. And that kind of set out a foundation which seems to have broken with Carlos, and it has happened far too many times. It happened. This is. And he specifically mentioned this thing during the outburst. Afterwards, there was apparently a complete media embargo and they didn't really say much. So, according to him, this has happened far too many times before, where Carlos has broken the engagement, whatever been made beforehand, and then come up with an excuse or something. You know who does these kind of things brilliantly? Lewis Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
And you know who's going to be Charles Leclerc's teammate next season? Lewis Hamilton. And other than anything, and I think we talked about this a little when we compared both of them, but Lewis Hamilton will eat Charles Leclerc alive if he continues to be this nice guy and thinks that playing the team game with a Lewis Hamilton is going to take him far.
Yeah,
There's one thing. There's only one thing I'd say more than anything else that you can take from Lewis Hamilton's career, and that is he does not fucking trust his team in any
No,
which
no.
way. He's
Well,
questioned them at Mercedes.
He'll play
in
the
2014,
team
15.
game when it works for him, as you said
Exactly.
earlier.
Yeah. And
Like the
look,
team
a
is
lot
great
of-
when the team is performing for him.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
just-
yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, they screwed him. They
In
led to
fairness,
his failure. And
He comes from
stuff like
the Ron Dennis School of Motoring. So what else do you expect? You know what I mean? Like,
that. Oh yeah.
So
Probably trained him that way.
yeah. Like
It's
his first team boss was Ron Dennis, and his first teammate was Alonso. I mean, he had a baptism by fire.
He had to. He had to
Yeah.
question everything, right?
So in fairness, like you can kind of see where it comes from.
Yeah.
So that's why I think Charles Leclerc is getting a service from Sainz here. Sainz at Christmas is going to send him a package, and it's going to say, "Look, now you're prepared. You're ready, my young Padawan."
This particular race actually made me realize that if Leclerc was in place of Norris in that particular McLaren, I have a feeling even he would have struggled, because he struggles with the same issues that Lando does. And I think you've mentioned it quite a few times that
Yeah.
he trusts his team too much. And the team, when it fucks up, is not willing to own up to it. It's not willing to put a hand around his shoulder and tell him,
It's
that
just
you're the person we are backing to
it's
the
just
hilt.
it's a
And
case
not.
of the driver is fighting for the team, and the team is fighting for the team.
Yeah.
So no one is actually fighting for the driver,
Yeah.
and that's a problem. You know.
And
Look,
I think
Charles
a lot
Leclerc's
of-
lucky though, because obviously he's getting an expired Lewis Hamilton whose shelf life has passed, so it doesn't matter as much. You know. So
it might. Look, Lewis is...
I am joking.
I know,
by
I
the
know,
way.
I know, I
Like-
know.
Like for
I'm
no, but
trying
for
not to
listeners,
laugh at every...
for listeners, Lewis Hamilton, as I've said repeatedly, has been brilliant this season, even in a car where he's clearly been unhappy. Like he has been brilliant. What annoys me, and the reason I bash on him, is generally because I feel like all of that has meant that George Russell hasn't got any credit for being spectacular this
Yeah.
season. That's what annoys me. So Leclerc next year will be spectacular, while
not getting any credit.
no,
It's just...
because it's all
yeah, but-
racism and sabotage.
Oh God. Apparently someone shared there was this whole... I'm going completely off track. But there was this rumor, right, that Lewis would be living in Enzo Ferrari's home.
Mm.
And,
Is it
and,
true or
No, it's not true. I mean,
No?
it's an old... It's basically a museum, that place right now.
yeah?
Fuck would he
That's
live
when I
there?
saw it. I thought that is one of the Ferrari museum buildings. That's what-
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's and apparently someone shared a very racist
Oh God.
meme where it was Enzo Ferrari in his grave when Lewis Hamilton is living in his...
Oh God.
Oh God.
Even though, in fairness, as much as Enzo Ferrari was clearly a bit of a prick throughout his life, and the Ferrari movie, brilliant by the way, if you haven't seen it, with Adam Driver, is it?
Yeah.
Like the one thing about Enzo Ferrari is Enzo Ferrari took performance over everything else.
Yeah.
So
He
Enzo
would-
Ferrari would take 2017, 2018 Hamilton in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Probably not this. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. You you can't resist taking digs at him, right?
No,
Anyways,
because
moving on from Lewis.
it's because
Yeah.
he keeps upsetting my favorite driver. I love you, George.
Yeah.
It's not my
Moving
favorite
on, moving on,
driver.
moving
by the
on.
way.
Moving on. Leclerc. He does have that kind of asshole in him when it comes to the when the helmet is on, you see it. Again, his racing
He's
is
aggressive
very
on track. Yeah,
bloody aggressive. But I
brilliant. Yeah,
Yeah, but the problem is when the helmet's off. I don't think he's that assertive figure that kind of galvanizes a team around him. I think that leader aspect. I think out of all these new drivers, I think other than George, I do not see it in Lando. I do not see it in Leclerc. I see it
Yeah.
in Max.
Yeah.
But in abundance, I do not see it in either of these two. I think that
The thing
worries
is,
me.
what kind of concerns me is like if that was him and Max Verstappen fighting, he wouldn't have got angry about Max Verstappen. He would have just been more aggressive and would have held him off. It's like he just, I think he just needs to be a bit careful because he clearly cares more about the team than the team really care about him. It's just what we said before. So like, because like it genuinely, if that was Max Verstappen trying to be aggressive and passing him and all this stuff, he would have been aggressive back. We've seen it in the past. Like we saw it in 2022. Fair, but aggressive. But like, and if Max got out of hand, Leclerc would be the first one to play that game back, like on track. But because it's his teammate, he's giving more leeway than he would otherwise. And yeah, I think, look, it's like you said, it's like Lando Norris. It's like these guys feel like they owe a lot to the team, but the team don't really seem to feel like they owe anything to them. So it's kind of this imbalance. And I don't know if maybe the two of those drivers, maybe it needs to come to a head where 2025 they both have a chance to win the title and the team screw both of them and Max wins or something. And the two of them decide, right, fuck it, I'm out of here. Like I'm not doing this. Maybe they need to go to another team. But maybe they need to go to another team. Because I think like if Lando goes to another team with all of the performance and all the learning he has in mind, he then no longer owes really anything to that team, if that makes sense. So it becomes like a different game. And Leclerc likewise. But because both of them have kind of been in that team from day one, it's like, oh, well, this team gave me a chance. There's all this baggage behind it, that. Whereas like Verstappen never had that because Verstappen was basically like, I'll take you or Mercedes, whichever one. Like I've got an option with both. So give me, it just...
I think in 2025, what he needs to do is just, I think the first thing has to be, first name, I have to destroy Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah. He has to.
Everything aside, entire focus on one thing, I have to destroy.
If he loses to Lewis Hamilton, like Leclerc is in a bit of a precarious situation because, and I think we've talked about it before, because Leclerc should beat Hamilton. Like Russell has just comprehensively beaten him over a season. Leclerc should be seen as a higher value driver than Russell for a variety of reasons. So if Leclerc can't beat Hamilton at his own team, then that looks really bad for Leclerc.
Yeah.
And the problem is if Leclerc does beat Hamilton at his own team, it's kind of just expected. So it's not really a boon for him. It's kind of an unfortunate kind of lose-lose.
I don't think so. I think if he beats...
Unless he destroys him.
Yeah. I think if he repeats what George has done this season, it would still be appreciable because he won't have a version of Lewis who is checked out, who's making excuses. He'll have a version who honestly would be shocked at the kind of gap there is. And I think that's where the whole self-awareness thing is very important.
Here's a random question to piss off Team LH for you, just because we haven't done that enough this season.
Yeah.
What if
Hamilton
in this podcast? Yeah. What if Hamilton goes to? And I'm not saying this will happen, by the way. Just, I'm sure anyone listening this far in knows I just like to wind people up already, so I shouldn't have to explain. But what if we get a situation next year where Leclerc wins the Drivers' Championship, and because of Hamilton's performances, Ferrari lose the Constructors?
Oh God.
Do you think Hamilton makes it to the second year of the contract? Like, genuine question in that situation.
Drop your views in the comment section.
Because I don't think so.
I think he does. I think ideally 2024 would have been a season where he was honest with himself. But if he's not honest with himself at Mercedes, I don't think what his approach would be. 2025, this is Leclerc's car. My job is just to get up to pace, understand the team, rally the troops, and stuff like that. 2026 is going to be the same car, new car for both of them. That's when I can be at a similar level to him.
So you think Ferrari in that situation would still keep him?
Ferrari would keep him. Ferrari's not getting rid of Lewis. Lewis will get rid of himself.
Yeah.
Whenever that happens.
I guess it's an option on both sides for the third season, right?
Of course.
It's going to work, yeah. So 2027
it's basically whatever... Yeah, it just... Look, it will ultimately come down to if Lewis wants to stick around even more.
What am I saying as well? There's no way John Elkann is writing a check to say I made a mistake. Like, that's just not happening.
yeah.
There's no way. Yeah,
I mean,
forget
we cannot rule out anything with Ferrari, by the way. Who knows, by 2026
Ferrari
we
don't
have...
admit.
I mean, who knows, by 2026 we might even have Mattia Binotto back leading Ferrari.
Ferrari
team
might
changes
not be on the
every
grid
fucking
by
year.
2026 at this stage, to be honest with you.
No, Ferrari will be there. Ferrari will be here in 2050 and everything.
Yeah.
One thing that won't change is Ferrari would still be in Formula 1. It might be shit, it might be embarrassing, it might be basically infuriating, but it will still be in Formula 1. That's not changing anytime soon.
Fred Vasseur really needs he needs a Ross Brawn type figure to come in and like build the technical side. And I think as good as Leclerc is in terms of like on track ability, he's not their Michael Schumacher. Like, he's not that driver that's going to take the bull by the horns. And Lewis Hamilton, even if he comes in and is absolutely brilliant, one, he's not that type of driver anyway. He never was to like kind of properly lead a team that way.
Yeah.
And two, it's at the end of his career anyway. So I think Ferrari is still missing some stuff that McLaren could have had.
What Ferrari is missing is a Niki Lauda or a Helmut Marko or someone experienced who can guide the driver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what they're missing. And maybe a former, maybe bring Alain Prost, but I don't think the relationship
Niki Lauda back from the dead.
Yeah.
How hard can it be?
I mean, do something. Because the thing is, what Leclerc needs is a hand around his shoulder who, after this race, he can actually go to and vent out, and who tells him that everything's fine, it's okay, this is your team, everything is for you.
Yeah.
I think today Leclerc will be sitting in a very lonely place at Ferrari, even though he got screwed by both his team. By the way, the genius is at Ferrari. There was 4 seconds gap between Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. They waited until the gap was gone and then pitted Leclerc. How smart, isn't it? They know their second driver is an asshole and does not listen to them, and they still risked it. Brilliant. I mean, that's basically,
Listen, there's a lot of Hamilton fans who are very angry with Mercedes this season, and I just say one thing: good luck to you next year with Ferrari. Seriously, good luck.
Just wait for it in Bahrain.
I think both of us have a lot of pent up anger at Ferrari after ruining Vettel's career.
Vettel's career, Alonso's career. I mean, Leclerc's career by the looks of it.
Raikkonen kind of ruined his own career, so it's not really on Ferrari.
I mean, look,
Raikkonen just didn't give a shit.
I think Kimi was the one who knew that, okay, I just need one world championship. That's all I want to do. He got his first world championship, and then he was like, let's take my pension money. And his pension money was $35 to $40 million.
Raikkonen probably arrived at Ferrari, and Ferrari were like, listen, Kimi, we're not backing you. You're the number 2 driver. And he's just like, well, I still get paid. And they're just like, yes. Okay, it's fine. Yeah, whatever. I don't give a shit. Oh, I miss Kimi and Vettel being on the grid. I miss it so much. I might just, to be honest with you, I might stop watching I might just stop watching Formula 1 and just go back and just start, just pretend that it's like, one of the old seasons, like 2010 or something again. And
it's just, I mean, it's
I might just reset and just forget about modern Formula 1. It just doesn't exist, Just,
I mean,
anyway, we're at 2 hours and,
by the way.
2 hours and 40 minutes. Let's move on.
Yeah. Final thing, I think final thing mostly. The Red Bull Checo combination. I mean, when the fuck will it end? When does this misery end, by the way?
It's gone at the end of this season. It's over.
The biggest point for me is, again, the short-sightedness of almost all the F1 pundits. Today, the flavor of the season is Yuki Tsunoda, so everyone's like, Yuki Tsunoda should get the seat. Yuki Tsunoda should get the seat. Just 1 or 2 weeks back, they were like, Liam Lawson should get the seat.
Now
Mate,
it's called
if you cannot make up your mind, what do you expect Red Bull to do? And that's the problem.
Well, Red Bull
all of them are equally shite. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Just bring in Franco Colapinto and ruin his career as well.
I actually, genuinely, I just from what I've seen, I actually think Franco Colapinto could be the best choice.
Right now I agree.
The only reason is it's not like it's not even on performance. He's been performing very, very well. it's like that's one thing that we need to see that over like a full proper season to see how he goes at every turn and under every pressure point. But it literally for me is like it's 2 times where he's had a big fucking accident and his response afterwards is just and it's not like and then gets in the car and does a shit job. It's and then gets in the car and drives brilliantly for the rest of the race. So like he is the only person that I think mentally could get in, be destroyed by Verstappen for like the first three races and just go, it's only 3 races. Like give me till the end of the season, I'll be fine. You know, like just that attitude of just like, I'll get in and keep going. You know, I think Lawson, after Mexico, I could kind of see why. I think Lawson will buckle under that pressure. And I think Colapinto is the only driver. Even Sainz, I think, like after seeing him at Ferrari, I'm kind of like, I'm not sure it's a good decision either because he'll clearly buckle under pressure. But I think Sainz beforehand, I would have said, well, he doesn't have any better options. But kind of knowing what Red Bull is looking for now, Colapinto is the only driver that for me actually makes sense. Maybe Piastri, like
he's not coming.
No, but I'm saying in terms of like the mentality they need for that seat, the only 2 drivers on the grid is Hülkenberg as well. Yeah. But I mean, like if
Checo with Hülkenberg, you have a decent second driver who is brilliant in qualifying, and most importantly, what you have is someone who's actually close with Max. Apparently, they're very close friends. But also who knows what his role is. He'll do what Checo did. Alonso. So he'll know what his role is, but he will not, you can say, ruffle the feathers, and he'll have his moments of magic, which
he'll get his podium. He'd jump at it in a heartbeat. He'd get a podium. He'd get it all over. Potentially get a race win.
Who knows? I mean, like, the thing is, on his days, he's produced some. I mean, even today, he was P7 or P8, and for a long time, I did not expect him to get that kind of a result. Yeah, but again,
look, I think the Carlos Sainz news, as I said earlier, is a ploy. I think it's a.
I don't think that's happening. I think it's either going to be Colapinto or Checo next season.
I think it's a contract tactic where Red Bull basically were looking to get Colapinto into a seat, whether that's V-carb. Like, I think they could genuinely be thinking to themselves, look, let's put him in the V-carb, get Lawson in the Red Bull, and then we have the option after like 5 or 6 races, if Lawson's just falling apart, to just swap them out. And it makes life easy for us to just have the option to just do that. Yeah. And I think they weren't interested in Sainz. I think the only reason they're saying Sainz genuinely is because James Vell's just going, give me $20 million or I'm not letting him out of contract. And Horner's like, cool, I'll just take Sainz off your hands and fuck you. Yeah. Like, I think it's just
even Sainz would have a big prize, right?
Sure, but it's just like a kind of, right, well, if it's 20 million, then I'll pay 20 million for Sainz. Yeah. Like, I'm not, that's 100%. I think it's a tactic. So yeah, I think it's going to be, it could, with Red Bull, it could still be fucking Ricciardo at this stage. You just don't know anymore.
But I thought of it, but I think
less and less every day now. I think it's.
I mean, just looking at Daniel's Instagram feeds, you could just see he's already planning the post-retirement bit. Yeah, Enchante,
he's had that for a while, line, but he's off on that. Yeah,
he's really pushing that. He's trying to get into the American market a lot. So.
But before we, look, I think it's going to be it's going to be Lawson, I think. But before we jump on to just the last topic, I think, which is a fun one, Alpine. Have you heard this rumor? I heard it from Wim, and then I heard it from a couple of other people on Twitter that there's a big like kind of
basically shit resources.
Jesus, leave Wim alone. No, I know you had to. It's fine. No, look, I think there's few people saying it that are talking about potentially there being like an Alonso retirement party being planned
bullshit.
out.
Fucking bullshit.
No, listen, here's the thing. I've heard it. I heard it from him, but he's heard it from somewhere else, and then I heard it from somewhere else as well. And you know what it sounds like to me? It sounds like to me it's some sort of Renault party, and that's what everyone's getting confused about. Renault basically are already essentially, like last year will be their last year. Next year will be the 20th anniversary of the World Championship. I think it's a big Renault party, and that's why there's like Alonso videos and Alonso car being planned out and everything, and it's a big kind of Renault celebration going away party, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, it's Alonso's retirement." There is no way, because Alonso's got a new car for 2026. He's not retiring now.
No, here is Alonso's quote. I hope in 2026, unlike every other driver that has challenged Max and has lost, I hope I am able to provide him the kind of adversity that he's not able to overcome.
Yeah, he's thinking
that
like
bastard
that.
is looking at 2026. You're saying he's retiring, right?
There's no way. There's no way.
He's not going anyways.
To be fair to Wim, I know, like, I saw where he got it from. It was from people on Twitter and stuff, but I just immediately went, no, I guarantee you. The way they were talking about it was like there's a Renault car from his first championship, and I'm just like, but 2025 is the 20-year anniversary of his championship, so that would make sense. Like, they're obviously planning some sort of, event to say goodbye to Renault as the engine supplier and to say thanks to Alonso for the championship, and it makes sense, yeah. Speaking of Renault,
Alpine. I mean, so Alpine's. By the way, this came out when Ocon, I think, on after qualifying, he said that there's some issue with the car. Apparently, something's. I think he got. I think he's been out qualified quite significantly in the last few races. And apparently there is clearly some issue because there's a half a second gap. And I checked the telemetry and everything. Apparently there's something with the traction that he was pointing out. But anyways, that is still immaterial because the kind of
Gasly's car exploded.
And not even that. I mean, what the fuck were they doing this weekend?
The pit stop. Well, they're trying too hard to be the French Ferrari.
Yeah,
because
that was my first reaction.
Ferrari and Sainz were like, come in, and the last second we're like, wow. Sainz was lucky not to get a penalty there, I think.
We didn't really talk about it. Why did he not get the penalty?
I actually don't think there is a regulation specifically set against doing it at the pit entry. I think it depends on whether it's classified as dangerous driving. I'm fairly sure because it's been very inconsistent. Yeah, I need to check as well, but it's been very inconsistent over the years. We've had some drivers do it and get a penalty.
Remember that with Lewis and Hamilton, German Grand Prix 2018.
Out. There's been a few times, and sometimes it's been penalised, and sometimes it hasn't. Even if you remember Turkey, when Perez and when Perez and Hamilton were fighting in 2021 and they raced through the pit entry line and back out again.
But Checo was pushed into that particular.
Sure, but right. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule against it. There is for the pit exit, but I don't think there is for the pit entry.
I'll need to check. I think I need to go through the,
I need to check it as well.
That FIR document.
But so the point anyway was just Ferrari did that, and then Ocon and Alpine trying to be the French Ferrari did it one step.
It was awesome, pit opposite Hulk, and he did that. Fuck is everyone?
Like, this is Formula 1.
Like, what the fuck is going on? And apparently the other issue was they didn't even have the tools or anything ready. So it's not like Ocon will come and stand in the pit in that particular spot.
This is the kind of thing you would expect in like a Sunday like class racing series that some dads show up to.
Yeah.
Where, you drive back out, like, what the fuck happened there? I forgot the pit. Like, not Formula 1. Like, what?
And the funny thing, and
the team.
They didn't even end it there. From that point onwards, he was put on a single stop with all of the 20. And he was right behind Hulkenberg when he pitted.
In fairness, it was a two-stop strategy.
I mean,
they just forgot to change the tires on one of the pit stops. So
yeah, I know. They also put him on a soft tire for the last lap. Like, why? What is it going to achieve? You don't get the point for the fastest lap when you're outside top 10.
Oh Christ!
It's It's utter nonsense. It was mediocrity at the next level. These
I'm
guys
telling
got
you that
lucky,
team-
by the way.
That team will be sold by the end of next year. There will be high-tech GP on the grid in
Apparently they're
2026.
supposed to be, right? Yeah. That's what's going on.
Genuinely, that is why I am convinced that the end of year thing is like a Renault goodbye party.
Yeah.
Like
But
I'm
might be.
convinced.
Yeah.
It's
He's
some
not
sort
going
of
anywhere.
no.
Plus
There's no way,
Flavio, of course, man.
there's
It's
no way Alonso is doing that.
Exactly. And apparently there was this interview, right, where Flavio said that they had fired 300 people from Alpine. So apparently someone quoted, was it the entire pit crew?
Oh man, that's brilliant. Oh, that's so good.
I still can't believe. And apparently some very you can say prominent Ocon fan had actually put this out. You won't believe what the fuck happened. They called Ocon into the pits, and even the pit crew was not there, and no one took him seriously. But then a few people went back. They saw the onwards. What the fuck is going on? And
It's just
that's so Alpine. It's oh god.
this is the problem Ferrari have though, isn't it? Because if Ferrari did that, we genuinely would also not be surprised. Like
Yeah.
Ferrari is the only other team on the grid like Alpine where they would do something like that and you'd be like, what are they like if
Yeah.
Sauber did that, I'd be like, Jesus, what went wrong at Sauber? Whereas with Alpine and Ferrari, I'd be like, yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
again. Yeah. Anyways, enough.
I was
mean,
going to say,
we've
let's
gone
talk
for
about
too long.
Qatar for 10 minutes and then end it. 'cause
Yes.
this is going to be
Qatar
our first
Grand Prix-
3-hour podcast.
Qatar Grand Prix, it's a sprint weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. By the way, this one should have been a sprint weekend. Brilliant track for racing, not for
Yeah.
qualifying.
Yeah.
Anyways, Qatar Grand Prix, what do you think the pecking order is going to be?
I mean, it should be McLaren, right? It should be a McLaren
Afterwards.
track out and out. What do you mean?
McLaren, then whom? The
Oh, yeah,
pecking
no,
order.
I'm just saying, first of all, it should be McLaren out and
Yeah.
out. It's definitely not going to be Mercedes. I would say, I think Red Bull's going to be third. I think it'll be McLaren, Ferrari, and Red Bull. In terms of pecking order, Max now doesn't need to win anything anymore, so he might just go to the beach after the season. You know, just chill out. No, it's not a Max thing to do. In terms of the pecking order of the cars, that's the way it would be. But I would not be surprised if Max is on the podium because he's just defying all odds, and I think he's been pissed this season, and it's just been brilliant to watch. Ferrari,
the car would be good here. The problem is there are, and apparently this was something that Carlos Sainz pointed out, that the longer corners is where Ferrari struggles.
yeah, that's why they
it
struggle.
struggled. Yeah, that's where they struggled in Brazil. That's why it was not as quick. And there are going to be quite a few of them in Qatar, and that's where they expect to struggle. Even though the higher temperature is something that they're hoping would help them. But again,
Yeah.
let's see.
It could be McLaren, Red Bull, Ferrari,
Yeah.
Mercedes.
Yeah.
But
I think Mercedes
would-
is going to struggle.
Mercedes is going to
tire
have a
wear is
really
going
hard
to
time.
be- yeah.
If Mercedes do really well at Qatar, then something is incredibly wrong at the Mercedes factory. Like, in a good way, but it's also like no one knows what the fuck is happening with the car. They're just kind of showing up and going, see what happens here. It's fine, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, who's your pick for the win?
Norris, I think, will win this weekend. Especially now that I think like pressure's completely off.
Yeah.
It's just, there's nothing to lose. And I think Norris and Oscar both actually drove pretty well at Las Vegas. The car just was a handful.
I
You
won't
could
say
see it
Oscar
from the
drove well.
onboards.
I just won't say Oscar drove well. He was.
I was trying to be nice to
25 seconds behind Lando at one point.
I was trying to be nice to Oscar, but yeah,
He's had a very shit run in the last few races, right? Not nowhere.
What do you mean since the start of the season?
It's just the same, right? It's just. I think maybe the shoulders dropped after the whole thing happened with the team.
Look, he's obviously a very, very capable driver, but I think he's got on top of the tires. My question now is, it seems this is a weird thing to say, but it seems like since he got on top of the tires, some of the pace has dropped. Like, he hasn't been out and out just really quick. So I wonder, has the compromise of management and pace kind of hit him? and maybe he needs the off season to kind of reassess that. And like we see this happen with drivers from time to time. The question is like, can he do both? You know, like it's a genuine question for next year. Like, you know, and Norris has been very good at that, and people don't want to give him credit, but that's fine. Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think so too. By the way, Oscar almost won the race here last season, so he might be good.
And he won the sprint. So
yeah, he won the sprint as well.
I don't know. Like I have a feeling Norris will win this weekend. I think Norris now is going to be kind of. Like,
I think so too.
You know, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a McLaren 1-2. Like that car should be very, very strong around here.
I think it's going to be Lando, Oscar, Max. That's my.
I would agree. To be honest, I would agree with that. I'll swap Max with Leclerc just to be different, but I would say it's. I would agree with that. If McLaren show up here and aren't like kind of the almost dominant force of the weekend, then there's some questions to be asked about what's going on at McLaren.
Oh boy, yeah,
you know, because I expected them not to beat Ferrari at Las Vegas, but I didn't expect them to be that like kind of nowhere basically.
They were fourth fastest, right?
Yeah, and they were also like nowhere. It wasn't like they were close fourth fastest. They were just kind of
was catching them.
They were just nowhere. So, like at Austin, they had an excuse for it. At Las Vegas, I'm not sure what the excuse. Like they expected to be second fastest, but not fourth. Like that was.
I think Las Vegas is just it's a freak.
A strange track. Yeah. So
and that hurt them. So
yeah.
Maybe in the future.
Tires. They obviously just couldn't get the tires up to temperature right or in the right window. Yeah, just as simple as that. Yeah. So if they're not dominant in Qatar, then it's a concerning thing for
especially
McLaren.
Because they were quite brilliant there last season.
Yeah, so even when the Red Bull was the fastest car out now. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see.
Enough, guys. This one's a mega podcast, and we've recorded it on the day of for me.
So we'll see you in 6 weeks.
Enjoy it. I mean.
We'll be back next week.
It's been a long one. It's being a very long one. Okay, thanks for watching. Do hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Like the video. Drop a comment. Drop a lot of comments. Just spam the whole thing.
You do realize as soon as we say right guys, everyone just switches off anyway. So
yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.